we're here for another episode of Adan Plays Through His Backlog. Welcome. We're playing on the Switch today. And on the Switch, we are playing A Case of Distrust. Now, I haven't talked about this before, but on the Switch, when you go to all your software, right, it puts it in alphabetical order by whatever the title is. But unfortunately, it also does that for the definite and indefinite articles. So A Case of Distrust is not under C where it should be. It is under A for a case, right? Same for A Short Hike. And then all the games down there. Hey, Joe. Yeah. You can thank Felicia for asking Ben to do it. And Ben for actually doing it, of course. Yeah, so we're doing A Case of Distrust. Which is I believe, a narrative game, a narrative mystery game, detective game, where you gotta figure out some, mysteries. It says Ben Wander Presents. I wasn't sure who that was at first, so I looked him up. It turns out he was a dev, and he worked for places such as BioWare and Visceral Games before, so there's his name, Ben Wander, before quitting the AAA space and making games by himself, making indie games by himself. And this was his first game that he basically did by himself. And now he's got now he works with more people on his team. Oh, that should not be even on. All right. I mean, I'm loving this entire. So I think it's a point-and-click adventure as well, like a point-and-click interface. But I'm liking this entire aesthetic. I love I awoke in my desk chair. Ooh, okay. Across from me were his piercing amber eyes. They surprised me at first, but I should have known he'd be there. This is very noirish already. I think I'm gonna. Oh, I should go get some water. Because I realize I'm going to have to be reading a lot. I apologize. Give me just 1 second while I go get my water. Alright, sorry about that. Yeah, I realize I'm going to have to be reading a lot, which means my mouth's going to get dry. It means I'm going to need to, put liquids in there. Alright. I stretched and said mid-yawn, not very nice to sneak into a sleeping woman's apartment, but his stare just continued. I laughed at his glare. I cursed the open window. Oh, sorry, I get to choose here. So I laughed at his glare, or I cursed the open window. You know what? I laughed at his glare. I think, apparently I'm playing as a woman. It's a female detective, I guess. I laughed at his glare. I'd seen San Francisco's shrewd thugs, hardened cops, and deadly politicians, but none could ever match that gaze. I knew I didn't have what he wanted. Reaching into my coat, I took out my knife and flicked it open. I gave him the knife. I held the knife steady. Ooh, why would I give him the knife? To show that I'm super badass? I'm gonna hold the knife steady. I held the knife steady while staring back at him. Look, I said, nodding towards the desk. That's all there is. Take it or leave it. But a detective knows when she's beat, and I knew then. He wanted to search the place, and that's what he would do. I sighed, knowing my weakness for his type. Ooh. Alright, I said. Let's look. He let out a gleeful meow. Oh, it's a cat. He let out a gleeful meow in victory. I cut a piece of my apple that the cat had rejected. Always the sore winner, I jabbed. But I was smiling too, because I was telling the truth. There was absolutely no other food in my apartment. Okay, that was pretty funny. That's a good opening. She did say amber eyes, right? The cat often dropped by to scavenge. He made a lot of noise when he thought I was holding out on him. But right now, the place was clean, empty. No food anywhere. I had to prove it to him. Oh, that's why she would have cursed the open window before. Okay, so this is the point and click part. I had taken copies of old murder cases from the SFPD records when I'd left. I loved reading through them, even though my own contributions were minimal. At that time, I longed for those types of jobs. The truth was, any work was hard to find for a female detective. That lamp had belonged to my Uncle Lewis. He'd been an SFPD officer, one who argued policewomen could be good detectives, even while the others jeered at me. I knew he'd been right, but my current workload didn't help that claim. I thought about Lewis. I tried not to. I thought about Lewis more often than I wanted. I was lousy at handling the emotions behind those thoughts. Ooh, what's this? That's an ashtray, that is. Packaged cigarettes were the latest trend, but I still prefer to roll my own. Yeah, good woman. The ashtray was evidence that it was a practice skill. I suppose I had a lot of free time back then. A little bird down here. It's the Maltese falcon. I kept a small statue underneath a side table. It had been police evidence in the crime, and its owner hadn't wanted it back. I took a shine to it, so I snagged it for myself on my way out of the department. It might actually be the Maltese falcon. It's the cat. The cat had waltzed into my apartment a few years earlier. He kept coming back, though there was rarely a morsel to eat. He'd continue his loud meowing until I proved to him the place was empty of food. Alright, I'll come back to you, cat. A newspaper was flopped on the floor, its headline about the death of Lenin, leader of the Red Menace sweeping Russia. It seemed the Bolsheviks had lost their head. Get it? My old notebook now filled to the brim. I wrote everything down, even the minor details. Never know what can be useful. The first half had my old cases. The second half had my current. I'll do that. The second half had my current bunk, adultery cases. The only things I'd get hired to do. Whatever my findings, my employers often refused to believe me. It was a thankless work, but even that was hard to come by. Yeah. Can I do the second one again? Oh no. I can't. I can only do the one. Alright. Anything else? Ooh. The regular white icebox, tinged yellow with age, half blocked the kitchen doorway. My income rarely kept much stocked in it, and right now it was empty. Well, I can leave. Alright, but let's not leave yet. Let's talk to the cat. It doesn't matter how doe-eyed you are, cutie pie. We've got no food around, I told him. He licked his chops and looked at me. Apparently, he still didn't believe that. I needed to contradict him somehow, to show him something in the apartment that would prove it was empty of food. Oh, okay, so it's teaching me the basics of this, right? So I gotta find the evidence before I can contradict. I think the icebox is the evidence, but let me go back. I went back to the apartment to search for clues that I could use to show him. And, let me go out this door. The door to the outside world. If I left now, though, the cat would start wailing so loud I'd get complaints from the neighbors. No, he needed to convince me before I could leave. Okay. So I guess the icebox is the proof. Alright. So we will contradict. Case summary. There were no cases just then, but the cat was mewing and needed attention. I had to contradict the cat by first talking to him, then pointing to a piece of evidence in my notebook that proved the apartment was empty of food. Show the cat there's no food. So here's my evidence. And here are statements. No statements, of course, because the cat can't talk. But I'll go to evidence and I'll go do icebox. The regular white icebox, tinged yellow with age, half blocked the kitchen doorway. My income rarely kept... And it was... Yeah. I opened the icebox so the cat could see inside. Empty, I told him. The cat looked quizzically at the open door, then back at me. Sorry, fellow, there's no grub in there for me either. He stared at me with eyes as disappointed as I felt. Those big yellows always got to my soul. Thoughts of my family filled my head. My sister, my parents, or never mind. I'll go with my sister. My sister Muriel had sent a letter with an update of her life in Chicago. She and her husband had just purchased a new home outside the bluster of the city. Their 3 young children were looking forward to the move. I'd never told Muriel, but those letters I mostly ignored or kept me going. Kept me going. I think I want them to have a good relationship. I never told Muriel, but those letters kept me going. Hearing about my family, however remote, helped me cope with the isolation I was feeling. I'd refused to accept it myself back then, but perhaps Muriel had known anyway. My sister had an ordinary lifestyle that I had rejected. I'd wanted to change the world to save myself. To change the world. We want to change the world. I wanted to change the world, to bring justice for victims, especially the ones who no longer had a voice. Not that I was helping advance that cause with the types of cases coming my way. My mind spiraled into the usual series of questions. Had I even impacted the women's movement? Had I made any change on society at all? Was my plodding career worth losing traditional happiness? What was the point in the life I had chosen? A loud meow from the cat snapped my thoughts back into the moment. I took a deep breath and grinned back at him. Guess you can scram now, I said. Nobody's going to come knocking with food for you, fella. Oh, but somebody did come knocking. There immediately came a banging on the front door. Beyond a nuisance, this cat was psychic too. You order out? I asked him. In the doorway was a regrettably familiar face of Connor Green. Ooh, I like how the color, the background color turned into green. I stared at him. I looked past him. His company churned my stomach. If it's a regrettably familiar face, I think his company churns my stomach. His company churned my stomach. It might have been his bergamot perfume, which hung around my nostrils like a lingering, unwanted guest. I don't know what bergamot is, or how to pronounce it for that matter. I assume it's a scent of some kind. Hung around my nostrils like a lingering, unwanted guest. Or that sordid smile, which was forever plastered on his face. Yeah, I don't like this guy. He stared at me through the doorway with a coy smile. Well, ain't you gonna invite me inside? I started closing the door. But he stuck out a foot to stop me. Hey now, he chided. Foul way to treat a customer, Malone. Ooh, my name is Malone. So that was his angle, hiring me as a detective. I wondered what a bootlegger would need with a private eye, but he answered without my prompt. I'll make this quick. Oh, he's a bootlegger to boot. Haha, to boot. I'll make this quick. I can't take this to the hog house or the pigs would laugh me out. Of police. And other dicks just aren't as tempting. Also police, not penises. Oh no, sorry. Dicks is detectives, not police. Excuse me. Yeah, and other dicks just aren't as tempting. His grin widened. Thought this was going to be quick, I said, and I started rolling a cigarette. It wasn't quick, and I'd already rolled and lighted a second smoke when Green finally finished his story. I noted the important bits in my book. It had started with a letter, slipped under his door in a white envelope. Ooh, I really like this color, this really bold color palette. The envelope contained a single typewritten leaf, which he handed to me. It read, "End your game, or we'll end you." It had no signature, instead ending with only a small scribble in the bottom right corner that resembled a black hand. Okay. Green had a lead on a new rum running scheme. A connection from Vancouver. He'd given a sample to Tiny Paul, the gangster who ran the Tin Spoon speakeasy from mob boss Jerry Ferry. Okay, that is a lot of names. Actually, it's only 3, but still. They'd agreed to buy in for more. Green surmised the letter was about his rum running. He suspected Redstone Stable. Okay, that is now too many names. Another bootlegger of sending the letter. He told me that Stable ran a barber shop during the day and gave me the address. Green needed to know where... For a second there, I didn't know where to start. Green needed to know who the threat was from. He'd get Paul's gang to deal with them and continue his scheme to get rich. If I go snooping myself, he concluded, folks see I'm not trusting people. No trust leads to no customers. I need to play it low-key, which is where you come in. I raised an eyebrow and stared at him through the cigarette smoke. Something in his yarn was still twisted. He must have noticed my reticence because he said, you know, I work closely with Lewis. I'm sure he'd want to protect me as much as any other victim. My uncle. Lewis had put me on the force. I finally accepted Lewis's death. I was still searching for answers after his death. He'd been a man obsessed with helping victims and bringing justice to those beyond salvation. With that ethos, I never understood how he could have taken his own life. Oh no. Those thoughts haunted me. I'd quit the SFPD and started my own practice, taking his philosophy. Was Green worth my time? Would he be worth Lewis's? Man, we're only 15 minutes in. Green had tipped off my uncle in a few cases. I wondered if that was enough to warrant my protection. Before I could think past my headache, he threw a bill in my lap. Keep the C-note as a retainer. C-note is $100. A $100 bill, I believe. Pretty sure it's a C-note. And don't worry about getting in touch. I'll find you later for a chat. He turned down the hallway and I let him go. If he was willing to give me $100, I was right. It is $100. With no commitment, I wouldn't stop him. Why is it called a C-note? I don't know. I'm sure there's a very good reason. It's obvious and I'm just not seeing it. Alright. I turned back to the apartment, still confused about the whole story. My headache wasn't helping either. Whenever I lacked clarity, a trip to Southern Coffee was usually the cure. Can I get the cat to go already? The cat had waltzed into... Nope. Okay, so I have notes down here that I can keep looking at, right? Yeah, so here's the summary. And I have no... Oh, these... Okay, I do have evidence. And statements. I assume I'll have a statement now from Green. Yeah. A threatening letter has a new bootlegger scheme, suspects Redstone. Oh, and I can see it, so I can actually look at it. Ah, all right, cool. So I can actually look at what he said. I assume she has photographic memory. That's why she can do this. All right, we'll go back and we will leave the apartment. I'd mounted a gold plate on the outside that read PC Malone, Private Investigator. There was only one place I needed to go to clear my head. Southern Coffee. Ooh, I like this. Maybe later we can visit like different buildings just by kind of hovering over them. Southern Coffee was a basement dive. Excuse me. It wasn't modern, hip, or ever busy, and it was my favorite place to down some paint, especially in the company of the best bartender in the city. I gave my address and slouched in the back seat of the taxi cab. I thought a good way to pass the journey might be to chat with the driver. Yeah, why not? Let's chat with the driver. Cabbies have things to say. Some weather, ain't it? He said with a southern drawl. It's San Francisco, I replied. Expect fog and bring a jacket. Wish I'd known that coming from Missouri. Maybe would have stayed on the river. There were always recent transplants to this city. Where in Missouri, or why'd you come here? Why'd you come here? Why'd you come here to San Francisco, I asked. Oh, you know, had dreams of adventure. Dreams that my small town couldn't fill. Oh, we forgot to buy milk, Felicia just told me. Ah, we did. That's what we needed downstairs. Dang it. Sorry. Oh, you know, had dreams of adventure. Dreams that my small town couldn't fill. Thought of myself as a regular Mark Twain. But, you know, I recently heard a quote of his. The coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. He laughed to himself. That is actually pretty funny. We talked for a while about San Francisco, its overcast climate, its treacherous hills, its lush green parks. Eventually, we rolled to my destination. But before leaving, I asked, did Mark Twain really say that about San Francisco? The driver smiled and shook his head. Nope, but if I tell you he did, at least you'll remember a quote that's mine. I chuckled and left the taxi cab. I like this guy. He's funny. Southern Coffee was an automat diner. Ethel Burgess, the lone waitress, was friendly to help with any inquiry. Of course, if you winked at her right, she'd show you the way to the downstairs toilet, where Frankie played bathroom attendant. Ah, the speakeasy. There's a speakeasy downstairs. Southern Coffee had the distinct feeling of home. The familiar smell of mold in that old basement was enough to put a grin on my face. I grabbed the wine bottle on the bar and examined its label. It featured a picture of grapes and the words sacramental use only. Frankie looked at me with a spark in his eye. Go ahead, he said. Give it a swig. I will drink. I grabbed the half-empty glass that had been next to the bottle and swirled some of its contents between my gums. A bit spicy, ain't it? Frankie asked. It's good, I nodded. I shook my head. Too much. It's good. Sacramental wine. It's good, I nodded and gulped the rest down. It'll cost you too, he said with a smile, and he grabbed the bottle from me, turning it through his hands. Rabbis charge more than a nickel for this beauty. Only this type of Napa wine is made from that Zinfandel grape. It has a unique aroma. Okay, good to know. I mean, this means it's some kind of a clue for something. I've been trying to learn more about wine. It seemed everyone knew their stuff but me. I noted what Frankie's had said about the origin of the grape as he set the bottle back on the bar. You don't even drink. Since when do you know grapes? Since when do you know grapes? Since when do you know grapes? I chided. Frankie let out a bellied laugh. Some of these grapes are older than you, Malone, and I've known about them since I was a small tot. It's why I'm so good at my job, you know. Frankie sighed. Too bad more folks can't taste them. That woman's league is the devil. The Women's Christian Temperance. Aren't you done with the sauce? The Women's Christian Temperance Union was now under feminist Frances Willard, a positive force for the suffrage of women, but her staunch support of prohibition, along with the union's massive political clout, irked the very wet San Franciscan public, and she particularly wasn't popular with bartenders. Take a seat, he said. I'll make you something else. He was a big fella. He'd been a decent pitcher. He was a fantastic orator. What's more interesting, pitcher or orator? Orator. He was a fantastic orator, but knew when to be a good ear too. For my money, there hasn't ever been, nor will there ever be, a more loyal barman. I sat at the bar. You got the spooks, PC? He asked. You're worn as a catcher's mitt. I suppose my exhaustion showed. I won $100 for nothing, and I can't let it go. I told Frankie about the case, a threatening letter sent to Connor Green, how he assumed it was related to his bootlegging, and a suspicion of Redstone stable. The story took longer than I'd wanted, Frankie showing genuine interest by asking many questions. When I finished, he threw me the whiskey sour he'd been stirring. I took a large gulp and gave a sigh as thanks. I wish I could drink whiskey sours. I can't drink whiskey. I wish I could drink whiskey. Well, Green's case is better than most of what you're given, he said with some enthusiasm. At least it's not more of that adultery bunk. Sure, I replied, but I started with a goal in mind. What's the point in helping a man like Green? Frankie clicked his tongue on his teeth. Lawyer or priest, why does it matter? Let me ask you, are the clients you have now the types you want to help? I admitted they weren't. I told him that I'd wanted more for my detecting life. It could be that Green's case shoots your career forward, Malone. I sighed and stared down at my drink. My daze was interrupted by the basement door opening, then slamming shut. A small, blustering woman began marching towards me. She looked younger than she was wearing a light blue cloche. I'm gonna say cloche. A light blue cloche hat with a gray ribbon tilted back on her head. A scarf of similar blue draped around her neck. But I was startled by what she wore under it. A gray trench coat that looked too large for her frame. It was exactly like the one that had belonged to Lewis. Ooh. She hurled insults at me a while. All I could do was sit and take it until she ran out of gas and started breathing heavily. I set my drink on the bar and looked at her in the eyes. I inserted a hello. I studied her features. I turned away. I inserted a hello. That's the most... that's the sassiest response. I inserted a hello. I'm Phyllis Malone. How can I help you? Accompanied by a smile as genuine as I could muster. That knocked her off balance. She stumbled over her next few words and I added, and you are? The flame returned to her eyes. Between clenched teeth and she hissed, I'm the wife of that bum who sneaks into your bed. I asked, the cat? Where'd you get that coat? I just gaped. I asked the cat? That's, again, the sassiest answer. I asked the cat? But humor wasn't her angle and she just launched into another poetic stanza. And he just left your sty this morning, she finally ended. And that was when I gathered she was Connor Green's wife. Ah. Mrs. Green, I'm a PI, not a homewrecker. And I don't think your husband in his line of business would want to bet a dick anyhow. Again, dick is detective, not penis. Her look was pure incredulity. A woman in that line of work? She questioned. I don't believe it. Prove it. I can prove it. I have evidence. My notebook, yeah. My old notebook, now filled to the brim. I wrote everything down, even the minor details. Never know what can be useful. I opened my notebook and flipped through its pages. You see, Mrs. Green, this is what I do. There's not much more than I can show you to prove it. It still took more coaxing for her to believe me, but eventually she came around. She seemed grateful I'd explained it to her. Apparently she had seen her husband leave my apartment, and distraught she had followed me all the way to Frankie's basement and decided to confront me. I suppose I lost my head after what I thought I'd seen, she said, and she began to cry. Frankie, ever chivalrous to a dimpled girl, came around the bar and held her up. Now that's all right, Mrs. Green. Why don't I hail you a cab and send you on back home? She agreed, and they walked together up the stairs. Oh, I should have asked her about the coat. I was too busy being sassy. When Frankie returned, I said to him, you turned right real quick. Excuse me. He snorted a laugh. Ah, hell. We can't have that siren in here. With a torture yelling like that, every street bugger would have come down to her rescue. Good point. Mrs. Green is a torch singer? Well, I learned she was Mrs. Connor Green just now, when she came in here. I'd only seen her as Lil Fanny, singing lead for the jazz band at the Tin Spoon. The Tin Spoon, I said. Tiny Paul's joint. That's where Green is selling his liquor. Say, you think that's where she met her husband? I laughed. You're the real sleuth, Frankie. He made a sarcastic bow. I shook my head. You're telling me you escorted our little torture out just to avoid a bit of hot water? Frankie flushed and said, what are you talking about, Malone? I was never good with emotions, but it was plain that Frankie had instantly fallen for the girl. So what if I had more to squeeze out of her? I asked. What more could you possibly want from little Fanny? She can't have anything to do with Green's mess. Contradict. Mrs. Green's gray coat. Did you notice her clothes? That gray trench, maybe? I posed to him. It looked a bit large on her, don't you think? I thought she looked lovely, he said. That trench, I continued, belonged to Lewis. Frankie's eyes widened. So that scumbag Green might actually have been close to your uncle, he exclaimed. Or she might have. Either way, it's not total bunk. I stood up from the bar stool. Oh, I'm leaving. What had just happened was quite the ruckus. It seemed like my cue to move along. Frankie had a bond with that old shaker at the end of the bar. I was surprised he hadn't named it. He could sling a mean drink, though he'd only use the good liquor if he liked you. Frankie liked me. The bar stools were crooked and worn. My usual one was in the center of the room. I could sit on it for hours if Frankie had a yarn to spin. Of course, the sauce helped keep me in place too. Once I'd asked Frankie to lend me some cash from that register. He growled so fierce that I decided not to ask again. I didn't think his employers would notice before I got it back, but maybe he just wanted to save me from myself. Frankie was still behind the bar. If I was stuck on the case, a long drink with him might be helpful. Okay. It's good to know that I can visit back and, talk to him. Frankie kept a collection of pre-prohibition bottles on a shelf behind the counter. Their shapes and colors were far more alluring than the opaque jugs of modern swill. This bottle showed a California bear with the words Bohemian type in block letters underneath. I doubted that bear had ever heard of Bohemia, but he did look carefree. Oh, another one. This label had a poem on it. Fill full your cups, feel no distress at all. Our great thoughts shrinking less, we'll do a good deed nevertheless. This label showed a rearing horse in front of a forest. I had no idea how the horse related to California's most genuine bourbon whiskey, though I suppose I did stare at the picture long enough to whet my appetite for the bottle's contents. Alright, let's get out of here. We'll come back and talk to Frankie if I get stuck. The worn stairs led to the outside world. I was heading up the stairs when Frankie called after me. So what are you going to do? I've been thinking about Little Fanny. I've been thinking about Little Fanny. I supposed even mobsters had people who cared about them. And she'd been wearing Lewis's old jacket, so perhaps Green and Lewis had been closer than I'd realized. I guess I'll take Connor Green's bait, I replied. I've got nothing better on the stove, and he might need the help. Something still stinks, though. Well, what's your plan? Frankie asked. The way I see it, I have 3 goals right now. Green hired me for a job. Find the guy who wrote the letter. That's the basic part. But you want more? Asked Frankie. I nodded. Green's a shady character. I have to learn about him. Who is this guy? Dig in his past. I can't go back to him blind. And then there's something about his bootlegging. How'd Green get a connection like that? What's his source exactly? Squeezing that lemon might give me more juice. That sounds alright, he replied. So where is it you're off to? I've got 3 leads. The bootlegger stable, who Green claims sent him the letter, the Tin Spoon Lounge, where I might learn more about Green's rum running schemes, and Mrs. Green, who could give me more dirt on her husband. Frankie nodded his approval. Well, if you're ever stuck, come back and see me. You can never solve anything without talking it over. I smiled and went up the stairs. I think I'm going to go to the Tin Spoon first. Tin Spoon Lounge. Tin Spoon Lounge was a speaky in North Beach run by Tiny Paul, the gangster that Green had put in with. I'd never been there. The mob keeps a tight lip on their own houses, but I figured it would be a good place to chase Green's bootlegging story. Actually, should I go there first, or should I go to... I should go to Mrs. Green first. Green's house. No, because what if he's there, right? Shit. Alright, I'll go to the lounge. Tin Spoon Lounge. Yeah, go here. And she sings there, so maybe she's there too. I stepped into the taxi and rocked into a comfortable position on the back seat. I thought about starting a chat with the driver. Why not? It's not like my mouth is super dry already. Went to the Palace of Fine Arts, the driver said when I asked about his weekend. They were holding a guest gallery. My girl is a big Georgia O'Keeffe fan. Yeah, Georgia O'Keeffe is pretty good. Myself, I don't get all this new stuff. What's so hard about painting some wavy lines? For the rest of the trip, we spoke about the other artwork that had been on display. Pieces from Charles Sheeler. I don't know who that guy. Louis Lazoic. I don't know that guy either. Edward Steichen, or that guy, and many more. It was sad to have missed it. But when we stopped at my destination, I left my envy in the taxi cab and refocused on the case at hand. That was a fun time. I only knew Georgia O'Keeffe, though. I opened the cab door in front of a North Beach warehouse with a wooden sign. The sign's text was too worn for me to decipher any of its English, but a small gray spoon was still visible below the letters. I rapped my knuckles twice over the large metal door. A panel just above my head slid sideways to reveal a pair of eyes. The eyes looked me up and down, then just stared ahead. They were black and held no emotion. The room beyond was dimly lit, so I couldn't see much of their surrounding face. I cleared my throat, then a rumbling voice emerged from behind the door. Fill full your cups, feel no distress. At all our great thoughts, shrinking less. I looked at the eyes, still unmoving. I understood the doorman wanted a password. I thought I might have something in my notes that could help. Oh, yes, that's the poem. Fill full your cups, feel no distress. At all our great thoughts, shrinking less. Let me look at my notes. Evidence? Bottle with horse. Bottle with poem. We'll do a good deed nevertheless. Yes. We'll do a good deed nevertheless, I recited what I remembered from one of Frankie's bottles. The eye squinted. Wait here, came a gruff response. Alright! Good thing I read all those bottles. The panel slid shut and I heard footsteps walking away. I rolled a cigarette and waited. After a quarter of an hour, the panel opened again. Bar's closed, but you can shoot pool in the upstairs room, said the eyes. He pulled the door ajar so I could see a set of metal stairs. Walk up. Alright, that was really cool. I solved my first mystery. I walked up the stairs and opened the thin wooden door to the billiards room. It was much smaller than I'd expected for a gangster's paradise. Haha, coolio. We're all living in a gangster's paradise. The only light came from the hanging lamps above the billiards table. The haze of cigarette smoke darkened the room's corners. Alright, let's look at all this stuff. A couple tall chairs were placed around the billiards table. I wonder what for. The room was lit only by the dangling lamps above the billiards table. The rack on the wall held 5 cues. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6 is in this man's hand. A clean ashtray sat next to an emptied glass on the table in the corner. Okay. Anything else? The pool table was the focus of the space. The light reflecting from its smooth green surface tinted the den. I saw a tall, broad-shouldered man playing the table by himself. Based on Frankie's description, I gathered this was Tiny Paul. Let us speak to Tiny Paul. I cleared my throat to get him to look at me, then followed with a casual, "Are you ever going to take a shot?" He stood up straight, rested his cue on the table, and looked at me sideways. It was the petulant look of a boy forced to play with his younger sibling. "Hello," he sighed. His voice was deep. I asked him more about billiards. Yeah. I asked him more about billiards. "Thing is," he said in his baritone, "once you clear more balls than the other guy, you've got more crap in your way." It's true. Billiards is all about navigating through that crap. I never shot much pool, but I thought he might like me more if I feigned interest. I considered lying to him, telling him that I played a lot. I'll stick to cards. No better sport. I'll stick to cards. I'll stick to cards. I didn't lie to him just then. Stud, blackjack, or bridge? He asked hoarsely. I raised an eyebrow and he showed a sheepish grin. A gambler plays them all. He continued after cracking his knuckles. But I don't think you're here for a game. I asked for a drink first, before asking about green. Yeah, why not? I asked for a drink. Mind pouring us each a growler? I hoped getting Paul's lips wet might make it easier to grab something out of him. But he wasn't having it. Paul sighed. We're closed here. You'll have to come back later. He seemed annoyed at my stalling. Alright, let's just ask about green then. You like green, I asked? The wrinkles on his brow deepened. Like or dislike, it don't matter sometimes. I work with what I'm given. And he's given us a good lead. I suppose that's why you're here, Malone? So he'd known me, too. The doorman must have looked me up. The bait talks fast. I mean, it did take him 15 minutes. A quarter of an hour is not a short time to be waiting outside. Anyhow, he said, eyeing the billiards table. You need anything else from me? If you want something, better ask specific. Mobsters never failed to grate my nerves. He wouldn't tell me anything unless I pushed him with what I already knew. Alright, let's check my notes then. Green had a lead on a new rum running scheme, a connection from Vancouver. So you're giving the Green the dough, I asked. That's right, he said. We gave him the cash to get the supply going. You already gave him the money. Aren't you afraid he's going to run out on you, I asked. Tiny Paul frowned. I suppose you know less than I thought. Well, just to set you straight, that kid's right under my thumb. No way he'd get out of town alive before setting up our source. Okay. He turned his gaze back into the pool table. Anything else? Well, let's ask about the threatening letter. Why not? Or let's ask about Mrs. Green, because maybe that's why he's out under his thumb. Green's wife is a torture here? I asked. Paul smiled. With the pipe she's got built into that body, she's the reason most fellas keep coming back to the joint. Okay. Well, that didn't give me anything. Let me see. Threatening letter. Know anything about this note? I asked, and pulled out the letter with the black hand on it. Tiny Paul looked at the page, then laughed with his whole body. So there is a letter. Green's shaking over that. I'm not losing sleep, though. Look, Green and I aren't best pals, but nobody will touch him with our protection. And none of us sent it to him, or else I would know about it. Anything else, he asked? Let me see if there's anything else. Well, yeah, why not Redstone Stable, right? And then this one. Know anything about Redstone Stable? I asked. Heard the name, he replied, but why all the gossip? He could tell you more about himself. You won't give me anything on him? Now, why would I do that? He shook his head in test. Anything else? Alright, let's ask about... I just want to ask real quick about the fact that Mrs. Green is following Mr. Green. What's that got to do with any of this? He asked. I tried to press him further, but got nothing from it. He sighed, apparently eager to get back to his game. Anything else? Alright, I guess I'm done. I can't think to ask him about anything else. Yeah. I didn't have anything else to say to him, so he cracked his knuckles, arched over the table, and resumed lining up shots. Alright, let's get out of here then. Where's the door? Oh, it's over here. I thought about heading back down the dark stairs up to this street. Yeah. I'll come back when it's later, and then I can see her. Sing. So let's go to Stable. Let's go to Redstone. Green had suspected Redstone Stable of sending him that letter. Apparently, Stable owned a barber shop in the financial district. I figured there would be no harm in asking Stable about it directly. Yeah, why not? Even if he denies it. I waited on a taxi cab and was on my way. I thought I might talk with the driver to pass the time. Yeah, why not? The youth driving the taxi cab was driving in shirt sleeves, his hat and jacket on the front bench beside him. Our conversation led to the local dance clubs. We talked about dances. Yeah, why not? We talked about dances. Every gal right now wants the turkey trot, he said, but I don't know nobody who can keep it up all night. Give me the shimmy or black bottom any day. Too tired to lead? Too tired to lead your lady? He laughed. Most of these swing houses don't even got seats, so a fella's just up on his toes the whole night. By the end, I barely got energy to walk home. Lucky that you don't need to walk, he smiled as we arrived. I thanked him for the trip and left the taxi cab. That was pretty funny. The barbershop was down an alley, not ally. The barbershop was down an alley in the financial district, opposite the red brick National Bank. The small bell above the door twinkled as I walked in. The maroon leather chair looked comfortable. It seemed elaborate for a barbershop waiting chair. The hat rack was a deep mahogany engraved with gold lettering that read Fraser and Company Furnishings. That'll probably be important. The two sides of the mirror's frame were cylindrical, painted blue, red, and white to look like barber's poles. They clashed with the otherwise elegant furnishings. The frame on the back wall contained a yellowed photograph of an old man. He had an authentic smile and held scissors in his left hand. Stable's cabinet was similar to my own, but where mine was a dull gray metal, his was a deep red wood that looked heavy. Oh, interesting. The modern hydraulic barber chair had always seemed ostentatious to me, but this one, with its soft brown cushions and gold embroidery, was the most ornate I had ever seen. There was a tall man in the center of the room. He was wearing a flamboyant pink suit, tailored to accentuate his stature. With a maroon bow tie and pocket square, I gathered this was Redstone Stable. Bit of a dandy, this guy. The man turned to face me. He grinned, and his squinting blue eyes made the smile feel genuine. I must apologize, he said. We do not take walk-ins. I asked him for a chop. I told him why I was there. I studied his face. The wrinkles around his eyes indicated he was at least 40, but the rest of his skin was clean and smooth. He wore no hat and shaved his head completely bald. When combined with his smooth skin, it hinted at the look of a small turtle. His pink suit and maroon accessories only added to his eccentricity. He smiled and said, "How foolish of me. Of course you are here for information, Miss Malone." Well, how about a drink? I asked, to get us started right. Stable's eyes lit up and laughed, and he laughed. "You are completely unlike the other sleuths." He poured me a whiskey and handed it to me. As I gulped it, he asked me why I was there, with genuine curiosity in his voice. Why am I there? Oops. Why am I here? I'm here. Let's talk about this first. Before talking about the letter. Green claims you bootleg, I stated bluntly. His grin didn't waver in his response. Would you hang me on Connor Green's claims? I may partake in some gambling, and I may have a talent for it, but it is nothing illegal, I assure you. And you know nothing about Green's own bootlegging, I asked? Stable shook his head. I doubted he would ever answer a question straight. Well, Miss Malone, he smiled, will there be anything else? Let's see. Oops, wrong. Let's see. Well, might as well ask about the letter, right? I pulled Green's note from my pocket and showed it to him, but didn't let him hold it. Green tells me this letter is from you, I told him. He doesn't like the threats. Stable lowered his head to study the note, then chuckled. His knowing grin returned to his face. But this is a Black Hand letter, he said, flourishing a hand towards the paper. Have you ever seen a Black Hand letter, Miss Malone? I confess I hadn't. Exactly, he said. You should ring your friend Shipman at the station and ask what it means. Okay. Sam Shipman had been one of my uncle's regular partners in the vice brackets. I wondered what Shipman could have to do with Green's cases. Stable seemed to think that he had a lot to do with it. I pocketed the letter and continued with my questions, but I made a note to stop by police headquarters and see Shipman. Yeah. Well, Miss Maloney smiled. Will there be anything else? Yeah. Did you know... I showed him something from my... Oh, wait. Oh, okay. So that didn't... That wasn't anything. Okay. Well, that's cool. So sometimes it's just... I guess we're done. Oops. No. Back. Yeah, here we go. I don't actually ask why anything. Don't. Nothing now, I said, and turned back to the barbershop. Alright, let's get out of here. The front door had a bell on top of it. Leave. Yeah, we got a new clue. We're going to the police station. I always dreaded visiting the PD after I'd flown the coop, and I was in no mood right now, but if Shipman did know something about Green's note, I had to chase it up. Let's pass the time. We began idle chatter, but the driver kept stifling laughter. When I asked him why, he apologized and said, "Just got out of a Felix the Cat showing. They're running all of them back to back at the Orpheum. Best time I've spent. Felix the Cat was pretty funny." We talked about the Felix the Cat collection, including his favorite, Felix in Hollywood. Can you believe they got Charlie Chaplin and Douglas Fairbanks in a cartoon? We came to my destination, and he was still laughing. I stepped out of the taxi cab with a smile on my face. I'm going to talk to every single taxi driver, because that's excellent. The North Beach Station was SFPD headquarters, also poetically baptized the Hall of Justice. Isn't that where the Justice League hang out in Super Friends? The building dominated the corner of Kearny and Washington in Chinatown. Rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake, I thought it looked even more sour than it had before. I have been to San Francisco. I should mention this. I've been to San Francisco a couple of times. It is not my favorite place. It's fine. But like, it's not a city that I would go out of my way to visit. There's a lot of, I mean, not, like there's lots of cool stuff in San Francisco, don't get me wrong. But like, yeah, it's not my favorite city. But I do enjoy like games that take, games and movies that take place in San Francisco. Like I got nothing against San Francisco. I don't know, like, I don't want you to think that like I hate San Francisco or anything. It's not, I have other places I would rather visit than San Francisco. Even LA to me is a better place to visit than San Francisco. And I know a lot of people don't like LA, but yeah. I strode to the young bobbed girl behind the large oak desk. She must have been new because we shared no recognition of one another. I asked for shipment, and she motioned me to a chair as she pressed a pearl button. I sat down, and she disappeared through a frosted door. I rolled another cigarette to pass the time. Between puffs, I thought about my history at the department, the future of the SFPD, the shape of my smoke plumes. My history at the department. Between puffs, I thought about my history of the department. I imagined the station captain would have been furious had he known I was there. I did, after all, break a tumbler with the help of another officer's temple. That's a good way of putting it. I broke a tumbler with the help of another officer's temple. That's very funny. I should write that down. That's a good line. That had been my last day on the force. Actually, I don't need to write it. I don't need to write it down because I could just look at this stream later. It wasn't long before Shipman walked out of the frosted door. Samuel Shipman smiled when he saw me. He was tall and tanned. He had always been helpful. He had always been helpful to me in my days on the force. Working closely with Lewis, he acquired the habit of bouncing theories my way. He judged officers purely on results, and because of that, he was one of my few fans. We exchanged brief pleasantries before he said, "Wouldn't come here for glad handing." He had a habit of removing the subject from his sentences. What needs doing? I explained my case to him. He scoffed when I mentioned Connor Green. Working for that pinhead? Got a good mind to run him up a flagpole. I just need to know about this letter. I handed him the note Green had given me and explained its context. After looking it over, Shipman tried to stifle a laugh. Complete bunk, he said. See this symbol in the corner? Mark of the Black Hand Gang. Except Black Hand letters are always ransom letters, not threats. No foothold on this coast anyhow. And never been one in California. Was it a New York thing? So the letter's a fake. Shipman nodded. Someone trying to imitate the Black Hand. I grunted a sigh and noted what he'd said. Don't know if Green is getting one over you, he said, or if someone else is pulling Green's leg. But having more dirt on the man couldn't hurt, especially if he's your client. I agreed. I've been trying to dig through his past. You got any bunk on him? Shipman shook his head. No, from Oakland is all I know. But I can do some more digging. I thanked him for that. Under a pile of ice, though, might take me a while. Why don't I telephone when I find something? I had no office where I could receive messages, but I dreaded returning to the station. I told him to call Southern Coffee. Just leave anything with Franklin Conway, I instructed. He said that was all right. We traded goodbyes, and I went back to the station's entrance. Okay, that was quick. Now I knew the letter was a fake. Shipman was looking into Green's past for me. I just needed to chase up the bootlegging lead. I stepped into the street and thought about where to go. Go to his house now? It's the only place I haven't been, right? Yeah, I'll go to the house. Green's house might contain more clues about his past. For some reason, a threatening letter would come his way. And if I got lucky, Mrs. Green would be there to pump with more questions. Yeah. Now, maybe that's what I should have done. I thought she might be at the Tin Lounge, but, obviously it's closed. I gave my address and slouched in the back seat of the taxi cab. Yeah, let's talk. We made some idle banter. He was a jovial middle-aged man, joking and laughing often. The conversation turned to my profession. A working girl, he said, and his mind hardened slightly. I know what mine is here. His main? And such a dangerous gig. I told him it wasn't as bad as he probably thought. Well, I'm a bit old-fashioned when it comes to these things. To me, motherhood is the most saintly work. I'm sad many flappers are turning it away. I disagreed. I'm sure being a mother isn't easy, I said, but any woman should have the right to choose her work. And there's no reason she can't do both. He tissed a couple of times and said, What for? I have a niece. Thinks same as you. Problem is, a working girl earns half what her husband gets, and she won't ever go as far. Mrs. President, not in 100 years. You, sir, are not wrong. You are literally not wrong. This is 1924, and we are now in 2020, and it is, yeah. So not in 100 years. Maybe in 2024? I doubt it, though. And then the poor girl comes home drained as the last drop of whiskey. Now she's too tired. Who's left to cook or clean for the children? Why have kids, or can't both parents? Yeah, can't both parents? Can't both parents share responsibility? He nodded vigorously. Of course. I don't mean that a father plays no role, but raising a family is a full-time gig. Why strain a marriage? It's no wonder divorce is so common. And what happens to the children of a broken home? Are we giving up our values for a new roadster? I'd hate to see what the young uns after us do. Might burn the entire world down. God, don't I wish. We pulled up to my destination. I nodded thanks and left the taxi cab. I think that's the best conversation so far, frankly. The Greens' apartment was a section of an old Western Addition mansion. The owners had divided it for struggling families to rent after the 1906 fire. Once downtown had been rebuilt, people of means moved out of the area. Recent immigrants, mainly from Japan, rented most of the apartments in this part of town. I will say, San Francisco has a really good Japantown and Chinatown. They're really good. I like them a lot. So I will say that. I knocked on the front door, but didn't get a response. The latch was undone. So I pushed it open and stepped into the room. The apartment had a dense cloud. The room reeked of laudanum. Oh. The room reeked of laudanum. Based on the smell, I imagined she'd had enough opium to knock out a horse. So she's knocked out. The gray trench coat was hanging in the doorway. It certainly looked identical to Lewis's. I searched the pockets and found no identifying marks. It might have been a different jacket, but its recent appearance was off-putting. The bottles on top of the round table were mostly empty. I opened the drawer of the backmost table. In it were 2 train tickets. I mumbled St. Louis to myself, but then came the cackling voice of Mrs. Green. Ha! Forget about moving, Connor. I won't budge. Her head was raised, but her eyelids still remained closed. I won't ask her just yet. The ashtray on top of the smallest table was overflowing with spent cigarettes. The plant is dead. A wilting plant was on the furthest table from the door. I could never keep plants alive either. Even as the petals fell, they were still vibrant yellow. Is that it? Oh, there's some more bottles on the ground. Empty bottles were strewn around the apartment. I brought one to my nose and smelled the distinct aroma of laudanum. Opium mixed with booze. A harsh tonic. Guess that's it. Alright, let's ask her about... I guess I could just talk to her straight up, right? I found Mrs. Green slumped in her chair, eyes closed, head rocking slowly. Yeah. I asked her further questions, but her head just rolled back to where it had been. There was nothing else she'd say. Alright, let's talk to you then. Hello, Mrs. Green, I said loudly. She let out a long moan from the chair, then lifted her head, but failed to raise her eyelids. She tilted her head to the side, giggled, then let it roll back into place. I shook her lightly and she moaned again, but said nothing more. Oh, I guess we're done. She is passed out. Laudanum is not a good thing, everybody. Don't drink laudanum. Alright, I guess we're done here. But now I can go back to Tiny Paul and mention the tickets. The frame was just warped enough to prevent the front door from completely closing. I see. We are going back to the Tin Spoon Lounge. Let's talk. Just before starting to talk with the driver, I noticed a newspaper beside me with the headline about a recent International Winter Sports Week. I read the paper. Yeah, why not? I read the paper. International Winter Sports Week began today with the opening ceremony held in the Alpine city of Chamois, I think, France. Chamois? I'm probably mispronouncing it. Chamois? The United States has sent 24 of our finest men and women to compete in the inaugural contest. Is this the Winter Olympics? The first Winter Olympics? Our hopefuls are led by Charles Jutra, national speed skating champion, and our men's ice hockey team, who looks to upset the Canadian favorites. Organized by the French Olympic Committee, the same body that runs the famous Summer Games, this week of sports has been informally dubbed the Winter Olympics. Competition begins tomorrow. So it is the Winter Olympics, just isn't called that yet. I put down the paper as we arrived at my destination. Oh, I didn't talk to the cabbie. That's alright. I learned a little bit of history. Yeah, we know this already. I wrapped my knuckles across the door and the familiar pair of eyes leered down at me. Bar's still closed, but you can go up. Again, the door cracked open and revealed the stairs. Yeah, we're going to talk to my man. There's nothing new, right? No, okay. Tiny Paul was still calculating shots by himself. Anything else to tell me about Green? I asked. Hit this again, he chuckled. Look, If you want something, better ask me specific. Is it under statements or... Here we go. Yes. I'm gonna ask about this. I consider telling Tiny Paul about Green's ticket to St. Louis, but if these mobsters thought that Green was about to blow town, they'd be liable to dig him an early grave. I still need to solve my case, and for that I needed my employer alive. Maybe after it all cleared up, I'd mention Green's tickets. I must have been lost in thought because Tiny Paul said, "Can I get back to this already?" Oh, so I can't ask about the tickets. Well, fair enough, I guess. I guess I should go back. I should have read this first, huh? Oh, I gotta use this. Yeah. I guess I should go back to Redstone. Oh, that's pretty good though. I guess I didn't think about that. They would probably kill him. All right, let's go to the barber shop. We talked about politics, but I don't remember exactly what about. Not all my conversations with cab drivers were memorable. That's funny. The barber shop was down an alley. Yep. All right. Well, Miss Malone, he smiled. Will there be anything else? Yes, there will be. Shipman says the letter is a forgery. The Black Hand sends ransom notes, not threats, and they don't operate west of the Mississippi. Shipman tells me Green's letter is a forgery, I said to Stable. He grinned wide. Yes, Miss Malone, that I told you. What? No, he didn't. He grinned wide. Yes, Miss Malone, that I told you, but I'm curious whether Mr. Green himself knows it. Stable still would admit no knowledge of the note. Well, Miss Malone, he smiled. He didn't actually tell me that. What else? Okay. Nothing there. I'm honestly not sure what else to ask him. Maybe I should just go back to the... Nope, that's not relevant to anything. Alright. I guess... Oh! Okay, so I should go back... I should clearly go back to Southern Coffee. Alright. So I should go back to Southern Coffee. Yeah. Shipman said he'd call Southern Coffee if he found any dirt on Green. I could go see if I had any messages. Of course, if I was stuck on the case, a stiff drink with Frankie could give me some hint as well. If nothing else, I might get a hint. You hear the latest about Shoeless Joe? He asked. Gave an interview in Milwaukee. Still says he's innocent. What a racket. Yeah, Shoeless Joe Jackson was one of baseball's all-time greatest players. But in 1919, he was part of the White Sox team that had been accused of intentionally losing the World Series, fixing the match for East Coast gamblers like Arnold Rothstein. The scandal's magnitude was so enormous that every American was gripped by the reports in the newspapers, whether they were fans of baseball or not. I do know about this. Although the team had been acquitted in a public trial, Baseball Insiders still claimed the fix had been real. 8 White Sox players, including Shoeless Joe, were forever banned by the league. Throughout the ordeal, Joe had maintained his innocence, and he was suing his former team for back pay that he hadn't received after being banned. Most baseball fans prefer to think of themselves as insiders, and since insiders thought Shoeless Joe was guilty, so did they. Lawsuit starts in a few days, the driver rambled on. Can't believe the guile on this one. Thinks he can ruin a sport, profit from it, then sue the league? Why, I hope one of the lawyers socks him in the jaw. His rambling continued as we rolled to a stop. I left the taxi cab. I wasn't sure if the driver had even noticed. Alright, let's talk to my man. Frankie was still behind the bar. I wondered if Shipman had left any messages for me. Of course, if I was stuck on the case, yeah. I looked at Frankie. What's eating you, kid? He asked. I sat on my regular stool and wrapped my knuckles in the bar. Any messages, Frankie? I asked. And what do you mean by that? Well, I told Sam Shipman, an old contact on the force, to leave any dirt with you if he'd found it. Frankie laughed. So now I'm your bartender and your secretary. Say, if I become your housemaid, will you at least pay me? So I'm guessing you haven't heard anything, I said. Nothing yet, Miss Chief, Frankie chuckled. Shipman's supposed to call you about Green? What have you got so far? No real breaks to speak of, I said. Well, alright, I'll let you know if this Shipman gives me a call. I thanked him. What else you got, he asked. Let me ask about notes. I still had no idea what to make of Green's past. Frankie shrugged. Perhaps something in Green's house could give you some hint, he asked. I agreed and thanked him for the advice. Well, I guess something specific in the house, is it? I didn't see anything in the house. Oops, sorry, evidence. This loot, I pointed something in my book, but Frankie's response was not memorable. Let's talk about, let's see this. I wondered aloud how I could get more dirt on Green's bootlegging. Frankie thought about it too. He offered, well, Green's working with Tiny Paul in the scheme. If I were to buy from a new source, I'd have to try it, get a taster. I continued his thought. So there's likely a sample of Green's stuff laying around the tin spoon. That would make sense. Maybe I can ask Paul about whatever booze I find in there. Frankie nodded. Oh, okay. I told Frankie about the password to the tin spoon. The same poem as on one of your old bottles? This vintage one? He laughed and grabbed it from a shelf. Why would they use that as their code? We exchanged a shrug and he put a bottle back on the shelf. Alright, maybe I should ask about that then. I'll ask about that about that bottle, why it's his password. I mean, that's all I got right now, so. I assume time will not progress until I've done something specific. We talked about politics, yeah, so it wasn't memorable. All right, these things are probably starting to repeat. All right, that's okay. That's okay. All right, so let us talk. Let us talk about password. We'll do a good deed nevertheless, I repeated to Paul. Why make an old liquor slogan your password? Paul smiled. An old liquor slogan? That's rich, and here I thought you dicks were supposed to be learned. I raised a questioning brow. It's called The Drinking Song, a poem by Thomas Hardy, an old Brit. Oh, I know Thomas Hardy. I asked more about the poem. It's all about man thinking we're the top of the chain, and slowly understanding we aren't. All our thoughts, all our theories amount to nothing. We're just apes floating in this wide ocean of space. How can you possibly cope with that? How do we even know what we are now? But to hell with it. Take your mind off it. Have a drink and do something good. Not a bad code if you ask me. I tilted my head, neither agreeing or disagreeing, but simply impressed by Paul's knowledge of Victorian art poetry. Alright, that's enough of a lesson. Is there something else you wanted, or can I get back to this? Alright, that was pretty cool actually. I didn't know this. What else? That's my home. Nothing there. Maybe the glass? Let's ask about the glass. What do you want with that? He asked. I pushed at him on it, but okay, so nothing there. Maybe I ask about the empty bottles at the greenhouse. have no idea what you're asking with that, Malone, he said. When I pointed to an entry in my notes, nothing he said about the entry or anything. Alright. There's gotta be something, man. Wait, who's Frankie Conway? Oh, Frankie. Frankie's my guy. No, Frankie's not my guy. My guy. Oh, it is my guy. Sorry. My guy. Did I already ask about this? Yeah, I did. All right. Let's ask about Redstone not bootlegging. Nope. All right. Nothing there. Something I can ask you. Something about his past, maybe? Or maybe this isn't specific enough. Boss knows him better than I do. Okay. It's just that he's a local kid. Alright, let me see. What do I got? There's my stuff. Nothing there. Except for the letter, of course. Cocktail shaker, cash register, no. Waiting chair, hat rack. Chairs, greenhouse. Anything in the statements? I saw this already. I asked again about the poem. Paul laughed to himself and got nothing new from the exchange. Nothing there either. What's that got to do with any of this? Nothing there. I don't know, man. I can't ask him about his own statements either. Why not? You know Green's note is a fake, I said? So somebody's goofing Green? He laughed odd-heartedly. Or maybe Green's just trying toying with you. He blew chalk off the end of his pool cue and asked, anything else? Ah, dang. I'm not getting anything, man. Alright, I guess nothing here. I guess there's nothing with this dude. I really don't know. None of this seems like it would be... Why not? Let's ask about the trench coat. He probably doesn't know. Yeah. Alright. I think we're done. I guess I can go back to... I wish... Now you're basically seeing how not good I am at you know, mystery stuff. I guess we'll go back to the barber shop and see if there's anything there. I really don't know. I really don't know. I started some idle banter with the young driver. You're my last ride for the day. After that, I'm picking up my girl and heading over to Tightwad Hill for the game. I asked about Tightwad Hill. You don't know much college ball, huh? That new stadium they built for Berkeley last year seats over 70,000. Marvel of modern construction, and the team ain't bad either. That's Memorial Stadium, I said. It cost over $1 million to build it. How's it related to any hill? Well, the geniuses built the stadium next to a large mound. Now, why would I pay good money to get into the place when I can watch the whole game just fine from that hill? That's hilarious. Seems others think that way too. So many of us, they dubbed it Tightwad Hill. The girls don't mind being outside? You kidding me? He laughed. The flappers love it up there. We can picnic and drink some gin without being cramped onto wood benches. Suits both of us just fine. Well, I hope the home team takes it, I said as we stopped in front of my destination. He grinned. Don't matter. It'll be a ride anyway. I thanked him and stepped out. Alright. Well, you know what? Let me ask him about his stupid chair. Just cuz. Because I'm here, and his chair is ridiculous. I nodded to his furniture. Elegant trappings for a barber. Math was never my strong subject, but I can't see the barber making enough for all of this. He smiled. Yes, I have other methods of procuring wealth. but I do not engage in illicit activities, if that is your implication. Alright, he said that's again. Let's see what else is in his house. Hat rack, mirror, cabinet, barber chair, picture frame. There's an old man there. Excuse me. I pointed to the picture frame on the wall. That the old man? I asked. Stable turned to look at the photograph. No, that is my grandfather, taken near the end of his life. Why did you hang it in here? This store was formerly owned by my grandfather. He started it with humble beginnings. He started with humble beginnings. My Zaid taught me the meaning of hard work and dedication. I am held by reminders of him. Zaid? Zaid? I've never heard of that word. It must be another word for grandfather in another language. Well, Miss Malone, he smiled. Will there be anything else? Barber chair cabinet. Oh, okay. Is the chair going to be the same thing? The barber chair? Yeah, probably. Why not give me a cut? I asked. I don't see any clients around stable. I'm sorry, Miss Malone. He smiled. To be completely honest, my gambling and business acumen give me a decent living on their own. The barber shop is a hobby, and I only give haircuts to close friends. Oh. And I can't be a close friend? I replied, and looked sarcastically let down. Stable laughed. But we have only just met, Miss Malone. Perhaps another time. Okay, that was actually pretty... That was good. Anything else? No. Oh, the mirror, I guess. I looked at the cylinders on the other side of the mirror. That mirror is a sore thumb, I said. You seem above that sort of camp, Stable. Perhaps, he agreed, but that mirror also belonged to my Zaid, and I enjoy any reminders of him. I asked him further questions about his grandfather, but Stable refused to elaborate. Alright, anything else? Anything else here? Probably not. The hat rack, I'm sure, will just be about... Oops. Oh, Fraser. Okay, that actually is a thing, right? Fraser and Company. Oh, no, okay. It is Fraser and Company, though. That is a good shout. I forgot about that. Anything else? Any statements that I can ask about? Oh, what did I ask about? Can I ask him about the ticket to St. Louis? Nope. Or he doesn't care. Probably not this either. Yeah. Well, I don't know where to go, man. I didn't really get much of anything. I mean, I searched everything in the house already. Unless I missed something. I don't think so, though. I mean, you might as well, right? Because it says I might still get something from searching the house. I thought I did a pretty good job of searching the house, but maybe not. Maybe I didn't. I asked him about his shift and how much longer he'd be driving. Not all my conversations with cab drivers are memorable. Alright. Yep. I knocked on the front door, but didn't get a response. The latch was undone, so I pushed it open and stepped into the room. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure I did all of this. This was the coat. This was the table. This is the with the tickets. Oh, what's this? Oh. Spent cigarettes, okay. This is her. Lounging, the dead plant. The bottles on the floor. Yeah, I got nothing else in here. Just the tickets to St. Louis. Yeah. And this is just, yeah. Basically, she drinks a lot of laudanum. Nothing about the coat. Yeah, I got all this already, and I can't actually talk to her. Yeah, she's not going to talk. Yeah, there's nothing here for me to... And I can't question her at all. Yeah, this isn't it. I don't know. I guess I'm going back to Frankie's. But I don't think I've done whatever I need to do in order to get the the call from shipment. I can't just be waiting. I gotta talk to Frankie. As I glanced towards the driver, I spotted a strange device attached to his windshield. A rectangular mirror, about 3 inches tall and 7 inches wide, was held by a metal bracket. I asked about the mirror. He looked at me through it without needing to turn around. See how I can see you? He asked. I can also see that bull behind us. I turned in my seat and saw a police wagon a block behind us. It's called the Cop Spotter, he continued as I turned back to the mirror. Sold by this fella Berger. Works pretty well for knowing when to bend the law. Ah, might be a good tool for bootleggers, I offered as we arrived at my destination. He turned around for the first time with a wide grin. Yes, it might be. I smiled back and left the taxicab. Yeah. Let's get in here. Alright, my dude. Well, let me ask about Mrs. Green just being completely passed out. Oops. No, nothing about that. So I gotta ask him the right questions too. No, nothing about that. Sane shipment had told me Green's letter was a fake, blah blah blah. Could always go back to Redstone's table if I thought I could get further leads from him. I'd gain entry into the Tin Spoon by giving the correct password. Green's business partner who I'd seen shooting pool in upstairs building, or I could visit Green's home. Okay. Doesn't really give me much information, does it? Why not? Nope, doesn't care about that. Alright, let me get some statements then. Jerry Ferry. Where's Jerry Ferry? Frankie thought about it too. He offered, well, Green's working with Tiny Paul on this scheme. If I wanted to buy from a new source, I'd have to try it. Get a taster. I can his thought. So there's likely a sample of green stuff lying around the Tin Spoon. That would make sense. Yeah, but there's no booze for me to find yet. Unless there's something I haven't... Nothing in the house that I can think of. I mean, I showed you everything in the house. Alright, I guess back to Tiny Paul. Whenever I eyed the wine bottle again, Frankie was quick to discourage my appetite. I'll make you something else, but don't empty my Zinfandel. Only kind in the world that tastes like this. Can't afford another crate for a while yet. Alright. Well, maybe there's something in the, yeah, maybe I just didn't, there's something there that I didn't see yet. The only thing I could think of was that thing in the background. The, periodical, sure. As I went to talk to the driver, I noticed a periodical on the seat beside me. One of the magazine's contributors took great offense to Coolidge's position on immigration. But before I contradict him, she wrote, let the president himself tell you his ideals as part of his annual message. She quoted Coolidge, America must be kept American. For this, I propose it is necessary to continue a policy of restricted immigration. Oh, Coolidge, you racist. Based on either a prior census or upon the record of naturalization. Either method would ensure the admission of those with the largest capacity and best intention of becoming citizens. This speech, she claimed, was a slap in the face to many recent immigrants, for how many among them do not have the best intentions? His words only harden the opinions of the xenophobes, who quiver at the preposterous idea of a Bolshevik revolution. Perhaps in a modern city such talk is brushed aside. Of course a president only means to keep away the criminal ranks, but cast a glance to rural America and observe the change in tone, where foreign is anyone not white and Protestant. Hey, it's like you're talking about right now. It is there that President Coolidge knows exactly his aim: stoke the fires of division to gain the vote of the majority, encourage a democracy of hate. Wow! Are you sure this wasn't written literally today? The taxicab halted at my destination. I left the magazine on the seat and stepped out. Alright. Yeah. Bar's still closed. I can't, yeah. Alright, is there anything else here that I can actually... Oh! A bottle of unlabeled wine sat on the table. When I sniffed it, it smelled of strong spice. Okay, now I've got something to talk to you about. I hadn't seen that before. That was definitely new. My little thing flashed and it tells me that there's something new. That bottle on the table, I asked. He said, "That's the stuff, a sample from Green's source." "I know some Napa wine that smells exactly like it," I said to him. "That's so," he smiled. "Well, that one's from Vancouver." I had to work every muscle in my face to stop my jaw from hitting the floor. "Where's the wine from, Paul?" I asked him again. "It's from Vancouver," he repeated. Frankie had told me that only Napa grapes had this type of spice. If Paul didn't know this bottle was local, I wasn't going to tell him. But it told me something very important. I had to confirm with Frankie, but if my hunch was on the money, then Connor Green was not getting his wine from Canada. And he wasn't playing square with Tiny Paul. Okay, that's what I needed this whole time. "Anything else?" Paul asked me. I snapped back into the moment and considered if I needed to tell him anything else. Though I just snagged quite the load. "No, I don't." Now we go back to Frankie's. God, I can't believe I missed that. Sometimes this stuff... Anything else? Anything here? It's not always obvious, huh? Everybody remember that it's not always obvious. Alright. Well, that's good. Now I can go back to the Southern Coffee and ask Frankie about it. And maybe now I'll get the phone call as well. Which is good. What does this driver have to say? The driver began talking baseball. "You know," he started, "my bet is that the Seals could play in the majors. He's always had a high pitch and was just nasally enough to be irritating. Between Shea, Geary, and McQueenie, we've got enough guys who know how to hurl the ball, and our middle order of Warner, Walsh, and Montague is unstoppable. Sure, we need better fielding, but there's no reason we can't snag a glove from out east. Hell, we can pay better than half those teams anyhow. Of course, those owners say their teams would mop the floor with us, but they're just scared at a competitive coast, only want the profits to stay with their own cronies. But imagine their faces when we beat them in their own parks. What I'd give to see something like that. And you know, Art Griggs is rumored to be coming from the Angels. I just think it's unfair that we do this to... I just think it's unfair what we do to this league. Let him play with the big boys, I say." Oh, I guess we're done. I'm going to tune out now. He droned about the Seals for what felt like an eternity. His eyes glazed over. Excuse me, my eyes glazed over, and I was nearly asleep when he finally shouted, "We're here!" Alright. "Frankie!" Southern Coffee had the familiar smell of mold. Yeah, okay. Tiny Paul thinks his wine's from Vancouver, even though it isn't. "Well, you'll like this," I told him. "Remember that wine you offered me? Oh, my Zinfandel you nearly finished? Where did you say that grape was from?" "It's from here, California, Napa or Sonoma." "You sure?" "Yes, Malone, that's the only place that these grapes grow nowadays." "And not Canada?" I asked. "What are you swinging at, Malone?" Tiny Paul had a bottle of wine that tasted the exact same, that identical spice. He said it was from Green's bootlegging source from Vancouver. "Malone, I'm telling you," he said, "no wine anywhere else in the world has that spice. It ain't from Vancouver, and Green ain't getting it cheap." I nodded. "Well, you just confirmed my hunch. Green's got no source. He must be swindling Tiny Paul and the entire fairy gang. And I bet he'll run away with the money. Frankie let out a long whistle in disbelief. Just then the phone rang. Frankie picked it up with a hello, right, then handed me the receiver saying shipment. PC, he said, his excited voice crackling the speaker. Find anything on Green, I asked. Nothing, he said. I was puzzled. And why'd you call? That's the idea. First got pinched for a brawl in the ferry building. That was in November 1920. Before that, no Connor Green anywhere around the bay. Strange, he continued. Has trouble staying out of a mess. Mixed up in something nearly every week. So only appearing a few years ago, that Oakland backstory is Swiss cheese. What are you thinking? Green's got a different past, I asked. Uh-huh, he said. Guess that he just got here in 1920 and never been straight about where he's from. Wait, I said. If Connor Green was a criminal in another town, easily some cop would recognize the name and send him back home. His pity isn't that thick. Right, Shipman agreed. If it's the same name, could be his real identity disappeared in another town. I thought aloud. So he might have changed lives. Is there any way to confirm that? If Green fled, the local bulls would keep looking for him. But not if they thought he died. Get these cases sometimes, where mobsters fake a death to escape a burg. Use a mangled stiff to do it, someone unrecognizable. That way they get out of town without a chase. Got any mobster deaths in 1920, I asked? A ton, too many to look through. But narrow the search for me, a town he might be from. I could check the specific city's archive. Anything in your notes that tells us where he could be from? Yes! Yes, there is. Oh, I'm done with Green's bootlegging, by the way. And that is the tickets to St. Louis. I found some tickets to St. Louis in Green's apartment, I told him. The missus was ruffled when I picked them up. I stayed on the telephone while Shipman used another line to call his contact at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I was nursing a glass of gin when he got back to me. Lucky break, PC. Seems there's one that fits the bill. He read aloud an article from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch dated October 8, 1920. Gun battle at June's Diner. Gangster dead. Suspected bandit clubhouse scene of another shooting. A heated argument turned deadly Thursday as multiple shots rang inside June's Diner on 14th Street. Suspected hideout of Egan's Rats. A man was found dead at the scene, unidentified due to the shotgun wounds to his face. Police suspect he is mobster Bragg the Jester, who had hired a private eye to investigate threats on his life. Last month, Chief of Police Brandon said investigating gangster on gangster death was a waste of time, and the discovery of the threats leads many to believe police won't look further into the case. Hold on, I said. This Bragg character had hired a private detective. Seems police are quick to forget a case if they got a reason to think it's just gangster violence. This lines up with Green, I said. Gets better. Bragg's first name? Connor. I cursed loudly through the telephone. I continued with my theory. And your story says this Bragg was deeply indebted, so maybe Green's just waiting in San Francisco until he's got enough dough to skip town and go home. He have some bootlegging business? Shipman asked. Why would he leave that behind? No, I shook my head. His wine is complete bunk. It's local stuff, not any Canadian route he might be claiming. I didn't know why he'd pull a fast one until now. Returning Bragg to St. Louis could be huge. Swing by the station. We'll iron it all out? I agreed and slammed the receiver on its pegs. Whoa ho ho! I figured it out. It seemed I needed to make my way back to the station. Yeah. The station only shows up when I've got some stuff. So what's the news on Green? Frankie asked as I was headed up the stairs. Now it seemed like I had all the details. I summarized it for him. So the total wrap. Green isn't really Green at all. He's Bragg from the Jester, a former member of Egan's Rats from St. Louis. He's Bragg? Frankie was shocked. But he's been here a while, Malone. Sure, I said, but only since 1920. He couldn't pay off his debts in Missouri, so he faked his death and moved to San Francisco. Oh, that kid was from Missouri. He's been longing to go back, but he needs a way to settle his score before he can show his face again. That one cab driver was from Missouri. Is that where his bootlegging comes in? Frankie asked. Uh-huh. Green set up a sham rum running scheme. He bought local wine, but claimed to get it at a lower price. At lower prices from Canada. He convinced Tiny Paul to front him a heap of cash for it. Instead of providing the wine, he's planning to skip town with Paul's money, disappearing to St. Louis with enough dough to pay back his debts. He already faked his death once, so he'll do it again here? Frankie asked. That's right. His plan is similar to his last one. Hire a detective claiming he's scared for his life, fake his death, then know the police won't bother with underground violence. Frankie looked at me with a blank stare. Seems like all the pieces fit, he said, so he just hired you as a cover? I sighed. Seems like it. Don't worry about... Frankie started saying, but I cut him off. I'm going to see Shipman now. I'll sweep away this mess, then come back and see you. Have a stiff drink ready, I instructed. Just be careful, Malone. Egan's rats have a reputation. They can be ruthless. I turned and walked up the stairs. There's only one place to go. It's true. Green had hired me for a cover so he could blow town. Shipman held the final evidence to sink that plan. I needed to get to the station. Is it going to be the Missouri kid again? I entered the taxi cab and was consumed with my thoughts about the case. I'd finally caught my break, but it was a dud. I hadn't realized it, but I'd been reveling in real detective work. Once I learned it was all bunk, my mind's reverted to its incessant nagging. I wondered if I knew that. I wallowed in. I wondered if I was just a puppet to some two-bit mobster. I was hardly bringing much justice to anybody, which made me unsure of what exactly it was that I was doing. I supposed I was wasting my time. It all came back to the same basic premise. You're failing, my inner voice said. I began to feel nauseous in the car. My mind repeated its last thought. You are failing. You aren't failing, Phyllis. And then everything turned to black. Uh-oh. As if someone had shut all the lights. My naked arms faded into view. They emitted a soft white glow. I waved them. I rubbed my eyes. Willing them to focus, but without success. Between my fingers, it appeared in the distance. I could hardly see, but as the object billowed, a clarity came to me. Then I understood what it was. Lewis's gray coat. I floated towards it. I reached to grab the coat, which was when I saw the needles. Huh? No, not needles. Glass. Shards falling all around me. One piece wedged itself deep in my right elbow. I grimaced, but I was unable to make any noise or movements. But then, as suddenly as the rain had started, it stopped. Did we just crash? I looked upward with caution, wary of the rain's return, but above me I saw the gray coat. It was no longer billowing. It was rigid, a shield against the terrible rain. It started falling, slowly at first, but quickly it gained speed. It came upon me and enveloped me completely. It was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. I let out a gasp. And then the light. Whoa, that turned really blue. This is hard to read. It pierced my eye sockets, hitting the back of my skull like a hammer on an anvil. I directed all my energy into my lungs and forced out a yell. That helped. Everything became quiet. I could breathe deeply. I noticed someone beside me. He gradually came into focus. Shipman showed his teeth in a big smile. I looked up at him from my laying position on the Murphy bed. He swung his leg over a chair and sat beside me. Thought you'd never come around, he said. What happened? I tried to ask him something, but another bolt of pain raced up my elbow. All I managed was a groan. Relax, PC, just a few scratches. Quite the auto crash. Flew straight through the front window. They took out a large piece of glass from your right arm. I remembered none of that. I mumbled the words auto crash to myself. I wondered how bad the accident must have been. Shipman removed a flask from his pocket, unscrewed the top, and handed it to me. Not the best hooch. You might get rid of that banging in your head. I took a swig. I closed my eyes and sighed a deep breath. Oops, that's a typo there. As its warmth burned down my throat. I know modern medicine doubts it, but that gulp of moonshine helped. I went to give the flask back to Shipman, but he put out a hand to stop me. Hang on to it. Might need another swig after what I'm about to tell you. I propped myself up on my left shoulder to listen. About Green's case, the two of us figured he was going to fake his own death. Shipman clicked his tongue to his teeth and looked towards the floor. That ain't happening. Last night, Connor Green was shot through the heart twice. Ooh. What? I shouted. The exclamation was impulsive. I swung my legs quickly around and sat on the edge of the bed. My headache had suddenly vanished. Whoa there, Shipman said. Look. Been here with you all night, he added quickly, in that chair beside the bed. Just telephoned the station to check in, and that's the rap they gave me. Told them what I'd known from you, and they said they'd chase it up. How do you know it was him? Another involuntary question. I was running on instinct. PC, faking your death involves a mangled body. Shot through the chest, his face is still intact. Whatever Green was planning on doing, he didn't get that far. And we looked it up. He doesn't have a twin. That would be too easy, Shipman grinned. Green hired you for this case, he continued. Gives you every right to follow it up if you want. That said, he was likely taking you for a ride. Wouldn't blame you if you want to drop it. But I like your help, PC. You know the case. Could use your head. even if it's been a little bumped. Once you're feeling better, I'll be at the station. Come find me there. Whoa. Shipman stood up and cracked his back. Maybe I'll catch some shut-eye on the top of my desk, too. Sure beats that chair you got. He turned and walked out. Wow. I stood up from the creaking bed and surveyed the cluttered apartment. Anything new? No. No. Just in case, I haven't been back to my apartment. That's the Maltese Falcon there. Yeah. It's the ashtray where I rolled my cigarettes. That's my bed. That's new. The apartment was already cramped when the Murphy bed was up. With it down, I could barely squeeze through the living room. The cat's still there, which is hilarious. The newspaper was flopped on the floor. Its headline about the death... Oh, right. What's this book? Oh, filled... Yep. The icebox. Alright, let's get going. I stared at the doorway and took a deep breath. I suppose I owed Shipman enough to help solve the case, even if Green had given me the runaround. After all, what type of detective would leave a case half solved? Only one place to go. I want to get another crash. Although Green had just been using me, his life had apparently been in danger all along. I resolved to find his killer. I headed to the North Beach station for any information Shipman could give me before starting the chase. Well, there was that one kid from Missouri. The driver was somewhere in his 50s, but drove like he'd soon be dead, bounding through the streets and honking anyone in his way. Making good time, I commented. Bah, he exhaled, like an old ship captain. Congestion. All these motorists, not one of them knows how to drive. Lunatics, the last word he shouted through the window. You see Life magazine, he continued? 13% increase in auto deaths this year to last. 14 the year before. Most of them pedestrians. We crested another hill, and my head bounced off the car ceiling. Most folks run out of moonshine at home, then take the car. Take the car to the speakeasy. Can't even walk, and then think they can handle the road. The car's tires squealed as we rounded a corner. Well, not me, sister. This car leaps when I put my foot down, but you just gotta know what you're doing. He screeched to a halt at my destination. I stumbled out of the taxi cab as quickly as possible, thankful to still have every limb. Alright. I stepped out of the taxi cab and walked through the station doors, ready to chase any leads on Green. But standing in front of me as I entered, bawling her eyes from their sockets, was Mrs. Green. She saw me and brought her wailing closer. Malone, she exhaled through her sobbing. You were working for my husband. What happened? Her breathing obscured her next sentences, but I got the general idea. I told her I knew as little about the matter as she did, but that I was looking into it, and I was sure the officers were doing their best. She begged me to help them, again drowning most of her senses with her sobbing. I promised I would try. She took a slow inhale, raised her chest, and walked out of the station. When she was out of sight, Fred Grant came around the corner and let out a snort. Grant was another investigator for the SFPD. I noticed his wispy hair. I studied his ruddy face. I studied his ruddy face, strewn with broken capillaries that it gave the impression of a map of streams. A cigar often poked through his mouth, hardening his jaw and twisting his face into a scowl. I suppose that was an appropriate look for a man who enjoyed his bribes in liquid form. Grant had never been a supporter of policewomen, and he was no fan of mine. He lighted the cigar and said, "The widow seems pretty torn up about him. You really helping her out?" I said I was, and he gave another snort. Figured she'd go to you after we told her no. I raised a questioning eyebrow. Look, last thing I gotta do is head to the tin spoon. Then this goes in the freezer. That meant he was about to close the case cold. You aren't chasing it up, I asked. He looked appalled that I would even ask. You've got more to deal with than some dead gangster. The captain don't care about crap like this, so long as it's not spreading too far. And what about the girl? What does she expect, he asked. This broad goes and marries an Irishman? Peh. Probably killed by one of his own, or some Dago. All those bums run together. Oof. Dago is a racial slur for Italians, I believe. All those. So basically, he's talking about like mob connections. I gave him a frown, to which he responded, "Look, if the missus wants you on this, that's her gamble. But it ain't gonna lead you nowhere, and don't expect support from the boys. Not even if I find Green's killer." He laughed. "If you get a confession, we'll cop him." Excuse me. Not something the DA can thumb his nose at either. They gotta admit three things: means, how they killed Green; opportunity, when they did it; Motivation. Why they'd bother. You do that, then sure, we'll be right behind you. But there ain't nobody here looking into it, I promise. He pulled on a cap and walked out. I hurled a glare in Grant's direction, and I was still fuming as I turned down the hallway towards Shipman's office. Shipman was frowning at the stacks of paper atop his desk, but he stood up and smiled when he saw me. Glad you made it. I asked him, I don't need to vent about Grant. I asked him what he'd found. I asked him what he'd found in the case thus far. He laughed and motioned at the paper stacks, not in any way related to Green. Piled into the trash now. Nobody's looking into Green's case here. I must have scowled a mean look at him, because Shipman was quick to shake his head. Not that the case is dead, PC, but Captain has no one on it. Even Grant's coming off as soon as he can. We're underwater with other bunk. So you have nothing for me. Not true. Department still did the regular foxtrot. He tossed me a beige folder. Inside was a large black and white photograph of Green's face, muscles relaxed and eyes closed. It looked almost normal apart from his flattened hat behind his head, and the dirt and grass behind that. The report behind the picture noted 3 important clues. First, that Green died at midnight the previous night. I cursed myself that I had been so close to stopping it. Second, that Green was killed with 2 .45 caliber bullets to the chest. Those slugs weren't from a pea shooter. Green was killed by a mean gun. Finally, that Green was found this morning laying in Washington Square Park. That was only a block away from the Tin Spoon. I noted each of those facts and gave the folder back to Shipman. Those are my important where's my... There it is. All we got, Shipman said, laying the folder back on his desk. Can't pinch the gunman if you can prove the case, but you got to solve it without much support. Don't have time to help either, he sighed. No point coming back here until you've got your man. I never had much support. I never had much support from the department anyhow. Well, Shipman sighed, at least I'm for you. But listen, we need a confession on this one. Captain doesn't want to run around. Alright, right. Grant mentioned they'd have to admit to how, why, and when they killed Green. That's it. Prove that and we'll pick them up, he said. Oops. Never been on a murder before, right? Can get tense. Just know, if you accuse someone but can't prove everything, they'll turn like a switch. Might like you one minute, but hate you the next. Chatting with folks is your easiest route to more information, but won't get any banter after you accuse someone of murder. So be careful who you accuse. Could make your case harder if you go the wrong way. Good to know. Alright, I get it, I said, and I internalized it. And remember, Shipman concluded, plenty of lies out there, but you can contradict means, motive, or opportunity with anything in your notes. I thanked him and walked him out of his office. That was a little bit tutorial-y. I stood outside this police station and went over the mantra. I had to prove means, motive, and opportunity for anyone I suspected of the murder. Once I found all 3 for a single person, I'd have them licked. I started to begin the chase. We are going to the Tin Spoon. We're going to Green's house. Miss Green had pleaded with me at the police station. I hoped she would be more helpful than she had been the previous day. Oh, I only got 15 minutes left. Oh, is there a way to save this game? I asked him how he liked driving a taxi cab. It's alright, he said. Pays the bills, I suppose. But these things have 2 wheels too many. You like motorcycles better, I asked. He smiled. You've never ridden one, huh? You wouldn't ask if you had. I know poet. Can't tell you why it's such a riot, but it's a tonic to the rest of life, sister. He described the smell. I think that should have been I'm no poet. He described the smell of the open air, the forest roads, and the sandy beaches on the road from Oakland to Santa Cruz. Got a cheap Model H right now, but I need one of them new R32s made by a German group who used to make airplanes. Those babies are so fast they might as well fly. His eye still held a twinkle as I left the taxi cab at my destination. Alright, Mrs. Green, you better not be drunk. I came upon the greenhouse and knocked on the door. This time Mrs. Green opened it quickly. Miss Malone, she panted with noticeable shock in her eyes. I'm just frightened about people knocking at my door, she said by way of explanation. After what happened to my husband, everything feels so cold. Oh, I'm blabbering. Please come inside. She led the way to the 2 chairs and we sat down. She was more awake than the previous day, but her hair was a bit tousled, and her S's hung in the air. I've never known how to pronounce that word. Tousled? And her S's hung in the air long enough to belie her lack of complete sobriety. Oh, so she's slurring. Have you found anything about my husband's killer? She asked. I shook my head. And replied that there was nothing definitive just then. I said I might need to ask her some questions that might spark with the investigation. She straightened in her chair and replied with, certainly. I want to ask her about all the bottles. Actually, this. Let's ask about this first, then I'll ask about the bottles. It seems your husband was from St. Louis, I put to her. She squirmed but said nothing, so I pressed her. Mrs. Green, I'm investigating his death. You're right, she sighed. He had told me that he was from out east, though he lied to everyone else. He claimed he had to flee from his past. I never asked the details, so that's all I know. And you're the first person I've told. He also had 2 train tickets to get there, I continued. He wanted to return? Well, those tickets have no date printed on them. She paused, looked at me from underneath long lashes, and continued. He was thinking of going back there. I guess whatever trouble he had was blowing over, but I refused. I told him I wanted to stay in San Francisco. Whenever Connor and I quarreled, a sharp, wavering inhale cut off her sentence. Well, he kept them around to brandish, to show me that he loved me, and that he stayed here only for me. I nodded and spoke about something else. I have to not accidentally accuse anybody, because that's like the second option. Empty bottles. I motioned the bottles on the ground. Yes, I'd make a terrible housemate, she said. It's hard for a working girl, you understand. In many ways I did, but my clutter was less inebriating, and I told her so. Sometimes the vocal cords need a little lubrication, she smiled. Alright, let me ask now about her singing at the tin spoon. Oops. Wait, is this, where is it? Oh, not here. Oh, the Great Trench Coat. Yes. I glanced at the coat that hung on the rack. Where did you get this? I asked. Her unfocused eyes moved to the grey trench. Connor brought it home one day. It was too small for his frame, but I thought it looked swell on me. Seems built for a man, I said. Sure, but it's the freedom age, darling. We can wear anything or even nothing at all. Alright, so Connor was the one who knew. Alright, let me ask about the who's 45? Yeah, here. Oh no, wrong one. Stop it. This one. You're jazzing her, the tin spoon? I asked. She gave a languid nod. I wondered how she started singing, so I asked. So I asked about her roots. Well, she started, Papa never liked the petting parties, or the liquor, or the young men in roadsters, but he never made a fuss about it, not until I started to sing. That's enough to get a girl disowned, I suppose. I suppose I was a teenage prima donna looking for attention, she sighed. Where were you raised? Where were you raised, I questioned. She smiled, but there was a hint of cruelty behind it. I'm a Stern, Miss Malone, the only child of Abraham and Elise. My maternal grandmother was Frances Strauss, sister of Levi. Oh, your father, is that Abraham Stern? I raised an eyebrow. He now owns a full quarter of the Levi Strauss Company. And you're wondering how I came to this. She looked around the room. I imagined she would have cackled, but the laudanum kept her emotions muted. Well, I traded wealth for freedom at a young age, and I would do it again. I understood her reasoning. I nodded and changed the subject to the case. Let me see. Anything else? Oh, I want to ask about... nope, sorry. Not this one. This one. The fact that the dude was found near... Yeah. What were you doing last night, I asked. Her expression was surprised, but I told her that I just need to place everyone in their locations, Miss Green, to get a full picture of the evening. Of course, she said. Let's see, I was singing with the band, the show ending at about 10 o'clock. Then we went up into the billiard hall. Oh, it haunts me that Connor was so close when he was killed, she winced, but none of us heard anything, with how loud we were and how sealed that building is. How late were you in the pool room? I asked. Until early in the morning, say 2 or 3. I got nothing to contradict that. Let me ask about the other stuff then. Oh. What were you doing last night, I asked. As I said before, I was in the pool room from around 10 o'clock until early in the morning. Okay. What about the 45s? Okay, nothing about that. Alright. Well, I know what she said now. Alright. I think I'm done here. I can't think of anything else to ask her. Oh, maybe ask her about Green's letter. Her husband received a threatening letter, I told her. That's why he came to me. She sobbed. I know, the police told me the details this morning. that Contra had gotten a letter that he had begun bootlegging again, and that he thought a man named Redstone Stable was after him for it. It seemed they had told her everything. Okay, so nothing there. I think I don't have anything else to ask about. But let me just quickly check. Empty bottles, tickets to St. Louis, anything on the statements? No. I know my name. Quincy doesn't bootleg. Only gives friends haircuts. Oh, how about this? We talked for a while about that. No, nothing. All right, I think I'm done with you. Anything in the room changed, though? Probably not. But just in case. Let's have a quick... Well, there's no more bottles on the floor, so that's good. Nothing else, though, it seems. Yeah, let's just turn. Yep, alright. We are... Oh, actually, wait. The coat's not here. There was a man's hat hanging on the rack in the front of the door. Oh. So this does have new stuff. The man's hat. She came breathless. Is there somebody else in the house? Was she cheating on Connor this whole time? Because, yeah, there's a man's hat. And it could be Connor Green's, but I doubt it since it, you know, it went into my notes. Alright, Tin Spoon Lounge. This will probably be my last one. I wonder if I can save. He began talking about his home state of Colorado. Lovely land, he said, truly blessed with clean air and wildflowers. That's why he left. The people is mostly fine. It's the politics that are rotten. See, I married an Irish Catholic. Now most folks are backwards on that. But at least out here, they keep it to themselves. That clan has seeped right into the core of my beautiful state. Talk about the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. And now the clan is starting to think national. They're anti-black, anti-Jew, anti-Catholic, anti-Mason, anti-you name it. He shook his head. A day of reckoning is coming with the KKK and our politics. I just hope sanity wins. Buddy, you and me both. I hope so too, I said. He came to my destination. I step out of the taxi cab. Alright. I rubbed my knuckles on the same metal door. Instead of the usual dark eyes, the door swung open to reveal Fred Grant. He let out a PC, good seeing you, with more whiskey on his breath than a fire breather. He stumbled down the next few steps, and I caught his limp body. All loose ends tied up, he said, winking at me while he tried to stand tall. Threw the doorman in the back of the wagon. He continued, he says nobody came in or out from the upstairs billiards hall last night. Okay. The hiccup interrupted Grant's thought. You know, I believe him, but the Bulls need someone to work on, and putting welts on this goon will make the afternoon go faster. He says nobody came in or out from the billiards hall, okay? He again tried to stand upright. Failing at that, he stumbled to his police car, got behind the wheel, let the sirens loose, and drove the machine around the corner. Jesus. I continued up the stairs to find a similar scene as the day before, only Tiny Paul had been replaced by a young woman, idly playing with the deck of cards scattered across the billiards table. Whoa. Alright. Apparently these things might be... Some of these things might have new things. Excuse me. The balls were gone from the billiards table. In their place were some betting chips and cards strewn across the felt. I counted 5 aces, 2 aces of hearts. That's funny. Hey, where's the pool cue? There's still one missing. Anything back here? Oh, even the wine and stuff is gone. Alright, she's the only new thing, huh? Alright. Oh, the lamps. Forgot about the lamps. No, okay. I could see the tears welled in the girl's eyes. Oh, man. I approached the young woman and looked her up and down. I studied her clothes. I studied her face. She was in her early 20s and was naturally pretty, with her deep eyes, shimmering black hair, and big rouged lips. Though holding back tears somewhat twisted her face. Who are you? Who are you? I asked. She said it in a clear, strong voice. I'm Ella Smith. I work nights as a backing singer. She added in a more delicate tone. But, well, last night I had a bit too much of the cider. The whole band was here, playing a long game of poker and singing after work. I wonder if she had been in the billiards room since the previous evening. Perhaps she didn't want to talk about her night. It might embarrass a young woman. But I had to know the story. And you're still here, I asked her. I came to this morning. A blush interrupted her before she continued her thought. I was laying on the pool table when I heard the cop banging on the metal door. I asked how much she'd had to drink. I asked about Grant. I don't care how much you've had to drink. I asked about Grant, changing the subject from her drinking. I think she appreciated that. He was curious about the shooting outside last night. You know, a man died, but I didn't hear a peep. I don't think we could have heard anything through all the racket. I realized she was related. She was related to the Green case, at least partially. I had to pump her for information. I want to ask if Mrs. Green really was here the whole time. Where are you, Mrs. Green? Oh, here you go. Oh, why is it not here? Eh? Is it under evidence? Shouldn't it be under statements? Should be under statements. What? Is I really can't ask her about that. I guess I'll just do this. I asked if Green's wife sang here under the pseudonym Little Fanny. Ella Smith nodded in affirmation. Wait, that's not what I want to ask, though. Why I cannot? Huh. That's weird. Nobody through pool hall. Greenfield was killed around midnight, I told her. Do you remember anything from then? She turned red in an instant. Midnight was the time I sang all by myself to the crowd up here. How do you know it was midnight, I asked. Well, last New Year's Eve at exactly midnight, me and Little Fanny, you know, our lead, did a swell duet for the boys. They wanted to hear it again, but she wasn't around to sing it, so I did it alone. Aha! That's what I wanted to know. Little Fanny wasn't around, I asked. But the doorman says nobody from the billiards room left the joint. Ella shrugged. Maybe she was in the toilets? I didn't go looking for her. Look, I never got to sing lead. They don't like it. They don't like us Chinese girls doing that. Oh, she's Chinese. So I took my chance. How could I turn it down? She asked. Well, anyhow, after that song is when I really downed some gin. I didn't much like it, but they said it was good for me, and I was riding high with everyone watching. I don't remember much after that. I thanked her for the tip. So you claim you were in here at midnight, I asked. That's right, she said. I won't contradict. But I will ask about this. Well, no, she already said that. I asked her again about her whereabouts. I told you, yeah, okay. No, don't contradict. Anything else I should ask? The 45, I guess, just real quick. Oops, wrong. The 45. You know anybody who had a gun that could kill Green, I asked? Ah, she does. She looked at me puzzled. I explained myself. Miss, I'm just a private detective looking into the matter. I need to follow up with everyone. She looked surprised when I said private detective, but she didn't comment on it further. She chuckled at my question. I don't know if you know this, but, well, this place is a type of gangster hideout. No one in the band has shooters, of course, but just about everybody else in the building is carrying something. Okay? That was no help in narrowing my list of suspects, but I nodded my understanding. You don't carry a gun yourself, I asked. She shook her head. No, ma'am. No shooters in the band. She seemed adamant on that point. I will not contradict. But apparently that's something I can contradict about. Alright. Anything... Cards on the table. Those cards you're fiddling with, I said. Are they the same ones that the boys were playing with last night? She said they were. Alright, let me ask about Paul now. Paul not being there. Oops, wrong way. Hey, where am I? Here I am. Where's Tiny Paul? I asked. I need to see him. Paul's likely as tired as I am. After the band finished downstairs, we all came up to play poker. Paul and the boys were at it the entire night, so I assume he's at home. I asked if she knew where Paul's home was, but she shook her head. No, Paul and I aren't close. That's something else I can contradict. Man, there's a lot of stuff I can contradict. But I don't know enough yet. Alright, I'm going to leave her alone. what? It is technically time for me to end. But first, I'm going to check to see if I can save this. It doesn't seem like I can. Uh-oh. I don't want to have to start this from the beginning. Let me look this up. Let me look this to see if this is something that I can save or not. Case of Distrust. Save? Switch. Switch. Excuse me. I don't know why I think I'm talking so much because I'm coughing so much because I've been talking so much. Let me see. There's a lengthy review on Reddit, but I don't want the review. I just want to know. Apparently, I'm almost done. This is a short game, so maybe I should just keep going until I finish, like I did with Burly Men at Sea. All right, let's just keep going then. I guess this is going to be a longer stream than usual, guys. Sorry about that. If you've got other things to do, I understand. But hopefully you don't. Hopefully you'll keep watching, or maybe catch it on. But maybe it's just maybe it's just this place. But we're going to Green's house now. Maybe I'll stop talking to the cab drivers. I mean, that is pretty good though. I really like the talking to the cab drivers. Like they say really cool stuff. I glanced towards the driver and noticed the right side of his face was covered by a tin plate, painted to match his light skin tone, set in the plate with a glass eye. Oh, I know what this is. He was wounded in the war. I did ask. I asked about his disfigurement. He gave a rough grunt and said, "The war." I stayed silent for a moment, and he added, "Liz, near Flanders. Which division?" I pressed. 69th Infantry, he replied. Again, after a pause, he continued. The Hun came at us quick. Don't remember much. He tapped his faceplate and said, "Early casualty." This is World War I, and there's a character in, oh, what was it called? Oh, it's something for, Boardwalk Empire. That's a really good show. Everyone should watch it. It's a gangster show in the set in the 1920s, and there's a character there I think that character doesn't appear until like the third, maybe second season. Actually, I guess there was only 4 seasons, so it must be the second season. And he's a really cool character. He's one of my favorites. Was that your only battle? I asked. He gave a short grunt and nodded. Wish it wasn't. Many friends stayed at the front. We rolled to my destination. He turned to me and smiled. Thanks for talking. Most won't look at me. I smiled back and stepped out of the taxicab. Well, I'm glad I asked you about it, my dude. All right, Mrs. Green. I'm gonna contradict you. All right. I need to ask you about where you were. Oh, sorry. I need you to tell me again where you were at midnight. Contradict from Ella Smith. One of your backing singers claims you left the upstairs room before midnight, I said from my notes. That's not true, she said defiantly. I was there the entire evening. She seemed quite sure, Mrs. Green. She sang to the drunken boys without you there. But I asked our doorman, Miss Malone. He says nobody left the upstairs room. You're doing your own digging? I asked. She blushed. I just have no confidence in the police. Anyhow, if nobody came from upstairs, that eliminates anyone in the pool room. I must have been in the restroom, if Ella is certain I wasn't with them at the exact time, because I could not have been outside. Alright, I guess that's possible. She had a point. She did have a point. Well, let me ask about Ella Smith then. Maybe Miss Smith. Nope. Statements. Let's see. really wish my... Alright, let me ask about this. Most Tin Spoon's patrons have guns. Do they not, Miss Green? Yes, Miss Malone, but nobody in the band carries shooters. And gangsters keep a close eye on their guns. Okay, nothing to contradict there. That's what Ella said as well. Well, I'll ask about this. Why not? Actually, no. Why would I ask about that? Doesn't do anything. Oh, what about this? Nope, nothing there. Alright, nothing there then. I think nothing here. Oh, let's go to the other place I can go to. To Mr. Paul Redstone. Sorry, Redstone something. Stable, that's it. I don't know why I call him Paul Redstone. That's somebody else entirely. I think it's a real person. He started talking about boxing. My brother was traveling out east last fall. Won a couple of tickets to a boxing match in a dice game. Wouldn't you know it, it's the Dempsey fight. I asked about the fight. Dempsey and Firpo? That was the heavyweight bout of the century. El Toro de las Pampas, he said with an exaggerated bellow. The big bull comes up from Argentina and tries to knock our boy off his game, but good old Jack came back. Dempsey was knocked out of the ring, I countered. He flew into a typewriter and nearly lost his head. The driver nodded enthusiastically. Sure, that's what makes it so exciting. Jack gets knocked on his back, returns to give El Toro a thwack. Quite the poet, I said as we rolled to my destination. He smiled. Time to get out, Mac, and nodded and left the taxicab. I hadn't heard Mac before. Alright, what has changed here, if anything? No. The hat rack was a deep, yep. Now it's got a coat, though. I see the coat. That wasn't there before. Nope, nothing new. Alright. There was a man seated in the barber chair, tapping his foot and staring at me. I didn't see stable anywhere. Oh, there's a new person as well. He stared at me with a grin that extended to his eyes. He was wearing a barber's cape, which told me he was here for a haircut. I wondered why Stable had left this man mid-trim. I asked how he was doing. Swell, he answered. Yes, very swell indeed. Thank you, miss. His words came out as jovial as his expression, and they held a slight and affable southern tint. A few more pleasantries returned equally verbose responses with no meat to them. That infuriated me. That piqued my interest. A stranger in Stable's barber chair with no sign of Stable around. Who are you? I asked with genuine curiosity. I'm merely a mortal man enjoying my life at this very moment, he replied, looking me up and down, and there is much to enjoy. I heaved a sigh in response. Last night's headache hadn't fully disappeared, making me too tired to play any of his games. He frowned slightly. I am merely paying a compliment, he said. You modern girls get your stockings all knotted whenever someone calls you pretty. I asked again. I'm not going to apologize. I asked again, who are you? My name is Ray Carter, regular jazz bassist at the Tin Spoon Lounge. Though I suppose any lady with an attitude like yours never gets around to speakies. He worked at the Tin Spoon. That surprised me. Were you there last night, I asked? Until early morning, he gleamed. I happened to be winning a nice bucket of change at the poker table. Just about everyone was saying they never saw someone play cards so well, but I suppose you don't gamble either. I let that jap go, and wondered if he was at all related to this case. He plainly disliked my demeanor. I thought that answers might be hard to get from him. He saw me taking notes and asked, and are you some sort of continental operative? Ooh, continental operative. That is, oh, Dashiell Hammett is the continental operative stories. I love Hammett's, Sam Spade and continental op stories. When I nodded, he let out a whistle and said, "A woman detective. Well, that is almost as swell as that is almost as swell a sight as a black man in a white man's barber chair." Ask about where you were last night. Let's see what I get from you. Green died around midnight, I put to him. I was inside all night with the band and Tiny Paul playing poker. We heard no shots in that racket. Yeah, that's what everyone's been saying. Let me ask about this. Rilla Smith tells me Lil Fanny wasn't in the billiards room at midnight, I put to him. I remember her being there at the beginning and end of the night, but I cannot keep track of everyone at every time. If Ella seems sure, I have no reason to doubt her. Okay. So maybe she was in the restroom. Nothing about that. Okay. Let's see. You know where Paul is? I showed him something. No, nothing there. Tiny. Nope, nothing there. Oh, let's ask about the gun. Yeah. Did you have access to the gun Green was shot with? I asked him. A black man with a cannon? He laughed. Miss, if I held one in the tin spoon, I would lose more than my job. Much more than my job. Those boys do not treat me like they do you, pretty lady. I like to keep my neck, so no, I do not carry one, nor do I know where to get one. Right, no contradiction there. Everyone's been saying that nobody carries guns except for the mobsters, basically. I already asked about that. Ah, this is good. I'm sorry, miss. What? You're sitting in his chair. That's interesting. That is very interesting, though. Nope, nothing there. I didn't think so. But better safe than sorry. How about this? Green kicked the can near midnight, I said again. Right, yes, he nodded. You told me that already. We were all in the billiards room at that time. Yeah. Alright. Anything else? Anything else? I think this game would be a lot faster if I wasn't so dumb, huh? Nope, nothing about that. Actually, why don't I... Did you have any reason to kill Green? I asked him directly. You know, Little Fanny is 2 nickels straight, he said, but I never supposed that killing Green would get me any closer. No, miss, I had no motive to kill her. No motive for that. Oh shit, I should have been asking everybody that, huh? Crap, I didn't realize I could do that. Alright, I don't need any of that because he already said no gun, no nothing. Alright, let's get out of here. It'd be weird if he was still sitting there mid-cut, though. Alright, let me go back to here to talk to her, and then back to the house. Because I haven't asked about motives. I started talking with the driver, who began speaking about his recent European vacation. Went to Norway on a steamliner. Asked about the trip. Oh, the Olympic was grand, excellent machine. Crossed the Atlantic in 5 days. Plenty amenities in their new tourist cabins too. I asked about Normandy. I don't care about the ship. I don't like cruise ships. Although 5 days, that seems pretty quick. I asked about Normandy. He pinched his nose between thumb and forefinger and shook his head from side to side. I can see why these immigrants keep flooding in. That entire old world stinks. You know they eat frogs and snails? No, the steamliner is where I want to be. Next time I'll just stay on the boat. You are a terrible person. He still had the frown on his face as we pulled to my destination. Alright. Motive. why anybody would have reason to kill Connor Green? I put to her. No, I'm not sure. I heard Connor came around here on the regular a few years back. That's how he and Fanny met. But that was before my time. I never saw him much. Alright, no need for that. Anything else I want to ask her? I don't think so, but I'll ask. About the Gonna Kill Green I started. As I told you, said. Yeah. Alright, nothing here. I gotta go back to Mrs. Green. And ask about... I guess I could contradict... I could contradict her with, like, the... with the tickets to St. Louis. If she says, no, I don't want to kill my husband. Trevor started talking about the latest films. Have you seen the Ten Commandments? He asked excitedly. I admitted I hadn't. There's this scene, okay, where Moses parts the sea and the Israelites walk through the part. I mean, they walk across completely, you hear? I don't mean in the story, but in the film itself. Just a group of actors in between mountains of water. It looks real. I melted in my seat. How did they do it? Well, it may have looked real then. It does not look real now. And it has these colors, right? He continued. They're so vivid. The whole scene is blue when it's dark, or orange when it's hopeful. I haven't seen anything like it. But it's strange. Less than half the film is about Moses. I mean, you call a thing the Ten Commandments. You expect it to be the old story. And it is, but then there's a long stretch about these brothers, John and Danny. And this John guy's greedy and Danny's nice. And of course, in the end, John gets what's coming to him. Weird way to tell the story, though. I don't remember that at all. It's been a long time since I've seen the Ten Commandments. Anyhow, he ended, we're here, but you should really see this flick. Considering how much he just told me about it, I felt I didn't need to know anymore. Alright. Mrs. Green. I feel like I've seen you a lot today. Motive. Do you know of anybody with any reason whatsoever to kill your husband? I asked her. She mentioned her husband had been a bootlegger, then turned on the autoworks for a few minutes. I got her calmed down again and asked, were there any domestic quarrels? She pouted at my question. Every marriage has quarrels, Miss Malone, she snapped, but I loved him dearly. Is there anything to contradict? The tickets to St. Louis. I'm going to try to use that. What does that have to do with my husband? Miss Green asked. She was right, it didn't. I loved him dearly. She sobbed again. I guess it's the loved him dearly that I'm supposed to contradict. What about the hat? The men's coat on your... The hat. That's it. It was the hat. What does that have to do with my husband? Alright. Well, damn it. Alright, let me ask about what's his face? Where he... The fact that he's not... Oh, no, sorry. Not here. It was here. Paul wasn't here. Yeah. Let's ask about this. Oh, no. Okay. I thought might have been Paul at her house. That she was cheating on Connor with Paul. Oops, not that one. Oh, how about this one? Nope, nothing there. I don't think she knows anything about the rum running, the booze. How did you end up at Southern Coffee yesterday? I asked her. I told you, I followed Connor to your apartment. I became furious when I saw he was calling on another woman. Why were you shadowing your husband to begin with? I pressed. Oh, that. She stuttered slightly. Well, I had heard rumors that Connor might have been unfaithful. I discovered they were baseless, but, well, wife never truly knows. That's why I followed you all the way. Oh, wait. Maybe now I can use that. Well, let's ask about that then. You literally just said... You were, yeah. Really? That's, I mean, that's to me seems an obvious contradiction. I don't know. This game seems, I don't know what else to do. I guess I can go to, I haven't visited Frankie yet. We can go there because I really don't know anything else. Talk to Frankie a bit. love this job, he told me as we turned the corner of Polk and Bush streets. I used to work in a plant across the bay with my two brothers. You know how boring that gets? Bang this, push that. What a life. We weren't made for factories. Sure, they get paid more. They're part of a union. They have good pension. But they can't beat this, he said, revving his engine. Such freedom. We spoke about his love of the open road until we reached my destination. I like these little vignettes. I really like them a lot. There's really strong writing in this game, I feel. Alright, anything else? No, nothing there. Nothing new there. That's new. I'll check that in a second. No. No. Yeah. It's all the same. Alright, let's see this new thing. A yellow newspaper was flopped on the counter. It was the sports section dated June 1st, 1887. It read, Browns continue dominant play, ending May with the 21-2 record after Herculean 2 games thrown on the same day by pitcher Conway. Huh. It's a weird thing to have there. I'm stuck, my dude. I sat down at the bar and summarized my night for Frankie, including what Shipman has told me this morning. Frankie's eyebrows raised in shock throughout the story. He was attentive and asked many questions. He shook his head in disbelief as I finished the story. This is some case, so you think you'll go through with it? I told him I thought I would. He sighed. I don't know, Malone. These Egan's rats sound dangerous. You sure you know what you're doing? I answered with a stern look. Well, alright. Just let me know if I can help it with anything. Alright, let me ask if he knows of anybody. Just ask. I know it's not Frankie. I find a reason for someone wanting Green dead, I said to Frankie. Excuse me. If he's part of Egan's rats, that might be reason enough for someone to bump him off. Malone, be careful. They're notorious out east. If they're here now, he trailed off. I nodded. Anyhow, what else did you want to talk about? Let's see. Green was killed outside the Tin Spoon, I said to Frankie. Right, you've caught me up on that, he replied. Now you just have to discover who was near that speaky last night. I'm not sure you should be getting so close to these mob dealings. I can handle my own, Frankie, I told him. That's good to hear. What else did you want to talk about? Means. Means was killed on a automatic pistol, I said to Frankie. Right, you caught me up on that. So you need to find that weapon and place it in someone's hands. You won't have to be easy if the blah blah blah. Alright, anything specific I want to talk to him about? How about the fact that yeah, that one. No, he doesn't. Alright, never mind. I'm out. Maybe I can contradict Fanny, not Fanny. I can contradict Mrs. Green again. Yeah, Fanny, little Fanny, right? I can contradict her again with what the guy said at the barbershop. What was his name again? Driver asked if I'd heard the new radio program, WLS Showboat. When I said I hadn't, he launched into a praise about the floating palace of wonder. You see, there's this captain on his first and second mates, right? They go around sailing all the rivers of the U.S. Of course, they're terrible at running the ship, doing things like, he broke his sentence with a chuckle, hanging laundry on the paddle wheel. Can you imagine? He let out a bellied laugh. Well, anyhow, they also play music from the different places. Twangs from the South, trumpets from Chicago, and they run it weekly. How about that? How about that, I replied, and stepped out of the taxi at my destination. I left my driver still laughing to himself. Because now I got two people who say she weren't there. Opportunity. What was that guy's name? Ray Carter. Oh no, he doesn't say anything about that. Oh, never mind. I think he just said that she must have been... So either I was in the billiards hall or stepped out briefly to powder my face. I guess I gotta find the doorman, huh? I gotta find the gun. So everyone I've talked to so far, I can't accuse her though. me ask about the hat. I brought up the hat on the rack. Who does that belong to? What do you mean? She asked. I think it's my husband's. Queen was wearing his hat in the police photo. Fanny winced at my reference to the photograph of her husband. He may have had more than one, she said. Alright, that was pretty interesting, though. I don't think she winced because... Oops, wrong. Is there anything else in her house that I need to ask about? No. No, nothing there. Yeah, okay. Oh, don't accuse. Ooh, that was close. Man, this is hard. I don't know where I should... Like, I have an inkling of what I think I should be doing. But... Well, what does this girl know about... Like, maybe I should ask her about the hat. We talked about the weather and not much else. Sometimes... Yeah, okay. Poor conversation. Alright. Yeah, let me ask you about the hat at her house. Just maybe you know if she sleeps with people. No, you don't know. Okay. Let me see. If she's singing, although the other guy didn't mention anything about singing, did he? Maybe I should ask him about whether or not she was singing. Having a lot of conversations with taxi cab drivers, I'll tell you what. I started a conversation with the driver, a young man who was a former journalist in Tennessee. I tried to change the place of my reports, he said with a slight twang. Left as soon as I saw that'd be impossible. What change? What change did you have in mind, I asked. Well, he cleared his throat. I was a staunch believer in democracy, but my old state's got this lawman, John Butler, that sells snake oil as far as I'm concerned. He wants to outlaw teaching evolution to children. I tried to fight it, to show the people he was insane, but it seems like his law will pass. How does this con man know more than a scientist? That's just one example, but it's a damn tyranny of the 51%. Argue democracy is good. The will of the people is the best governing solution we've got. It might not be perfect, but it's better than being ruled by kings or aristocrats. The driver shook his head. The will of the people gets dangerous if the people don't know what they're talking about. We're just swayed by the loudest talker. More than half of people say black is white. What does that make it so? I mean, this game came out in 2018, so, I mean, Trump was president at the time. A lot of this seems to be jabs at that whole situation. The taxi pulled up to our destination. This cab is a dictatorship, and I say you've got to get out now so I can grab another customer. He winked, and I exited. Alright, let me ask you... Let me ask you about... What do I want to ask you about? Let me ask you about that. Maybe you know something about her hat. Nah, he doesn't care. Let me ask you about what's in this place then. Where is stable? Ah, stop it. You won't say nothing, huh? About stable. Oh, sorry. Why is he in this barber chair? You don't know about why you're in the barber chair? Fine. Nope. Well, let me ask about his money winnings. Maybe that's something. I didn't think you could ask him about the stuff he'd already said. But apparently you can. No. Okay, nothing there. I wanted to ask about Oh, right. Yes, this. Green kicked the can near midnight, I said again. Right, yes, he nodded. You told me that already. We were all in the billiards room at that time. No, that doesn't help me at all. Dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it. Because, yeah, he says... Nobody... So you know about this? Nope. Doesn't know, doesn't care. Oh, let me ask about... Oops. Let me ask about stuff that... not Connor. Not Tiny Paul. Oh, I don't have the stuff that... what's his face? The Redstone guy said. Connor Green suspected Redstone Stable of wanting him dead, I said to Carter. Whatever dealings either of them had, I knew nothing about them, I said. Dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it. Oh, here it is. I wasn't sure about that. No, he doesn't want to talk about Redstone Stable at all. No, I don't care about that. How about this? No. Man, I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. Right, Frank, I need to talk to you. And I just need to show you everything that I have. Because I got bupkis. I began speaking with the driver, and our conversation came to the airships. You hear about this Zeppelin fella? He asked. The crazy German thinks he can run transatlantic flights. The Allies won't let him build any dirigibles now, but I say, give the man a shot. Well, we spoke about it the first transatlantic flights, and how he saw airships as the travel of the future. My head was in the clouds when I stepped out of the taxi cab at my destination. I brought my thoughts back to San Francisco and continued on the case. Oops. I am very stuck on this case. Nope. Doesn't care about that. Alright, give me... Nope, doesn't care about that. Maybe I do have to ask about her being Chinese. Nothing else seems to be... I mean, it seems like it's nothing, but it was important enough to put in the book for some reason. And they didn't put the fact that Ray Carter is black here. So this has to be something. No, doesn't know about that. How is she holding back tears? Had she been sleeping with Green? Oops. I mean, that seems important. Maybe I should ask her about it. Why was she crying? It can't be just that because she, you know, because she was, because she'd been there the whole night. That seems kind of ridiculous. But man, I'm not lying, man. I am super stuck. I don't know what to do. Maybe I will end soon. We talked about the weather and not much else. Sometimes, yeah, okay. That's fine. I want to ask you about why you were crying. Oh. States. Here, yeah. I said I know she'd been crying and asked her why. Her lower lip wavered, but she managed to stop it before any tears could get through. It's that copper who was just here. He kept wanting me to feed him drinks, and the more I put in him, the more fresh he got with me. She heaved a sigh. It's not your fault. Not your fault, I said. Of course it isn't, she exclaimed. All men are brutes, but I can't exactly slip away from the copper. Anyhow, I'm just frantic because of the booze, and I'm sure it'll wear off. She turned her gaze back to the cards on the table. She was putting up a strong mask, but I could tell something about Grant's interaction had rattled her. The truth is, most women wear a mask in public. Almost every one of us has a story about being mistreated or worse. Yeah, me too. Can I ask about... I don't know if that'll... About this? Right, that was new though. That was a little bit new. Maybe I should just ask her about the stuff that she has said. Oh, how about this? I mean, I might as well start here, right? Your parents are Chinese? Smith sighed. I don't even know my parents, and I can't speak Chinese. I was raised at the Occidental Board Mission House, the one orphanage that takes Chinese kids. But nobody adopts an Oriental. She said that last word with obvious disgust. Over half the kids my age die as infants. We're the unwanted. I was... She paused and looked down at her feet. I waited for her to continue, but she didn't say anything else. Okay. What else? No. What about the... If I ask them about what they've said, they give me... Sometimes they give me more stuff. Oops, wrong one. This one. Nope, nothing there. Alright. Can I ask about Carter? No. Well, let me ask about maybe specifically what Ray Carter said. There you go. Yeah, yeah. Let me ask about this. Ow. What else? I mean, you three people were supposed to be here. No. Alright. I got nothing from you. Alright, let's go to Mrs. Green and ask about her, the stapler stuff. I should probably just sit in one place and ask everybody everything until I get a hit. Oops, sorry. Leave, yes. That might be my best. I mean, that's pretty much brute forcing the situation. But I don't know. It might be my best option at this point. Oh, sorry. Yes, go here. Go here. Talk. Long shift, I asked? Excelled the driver, with as much gravel as a cement mixer. Been on the road for 6 hours, probably pulling another 6 before I go back to the missus. Seems like I waste away in this taxi while the boss just overflows in his coffers. I kept him talking and he complained about his life for a while. He ended with, but it's the same shit for all working folks, ain't it? They tell us we've got our hope, but then the rich make the rules and only the rich break them too. Yeah. I've been reading Henry R. Carey. A fellow talks a lot about this. Says America is ruled in secret by rich men, and the wise leaders don't get to the top and ain't encouraged to do so. That name sounds familiar, but I don't know who it might be. So what's your way out? He smiled. Keep reading, stay sharp, become one of the rich men. The great thing about America, anyone can get rich. I disagree. I doubt those rich folks will let you into the aristocracy. Why not just overthrow them? He shook his head. You don't get it. Poverty is permanent for the lazy. I'm a hard worker. I'll get out of this mess. Anyhow, he said, we've arrived. You have a good one, missus. I thanked him and left the taxi cab. No, that's not how it works, my dude. Alright. Let me ask you about everything my dude said. I like how she's always, like, it looks like she's shouting. Nope, nothing there. Seems like none of you guys seem to remember Mr. Parker. But you also don't contradict either. You're not like, who is this guy? Which is kind of annoying. Well, let me ask about Ella's being Chinese. Nope, nothing. Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm getting nothing out of you. All right, let's do this. Let's just do it like I said. We're gonna brute force this until I get something. Yeah. She already said that. Yeah, she did say the police mentioned the details. Okay, nothing about the coat. So I asked. Oh wait, she said this already. You never liked singing? No, but I love it, she said as she breathed in a smile. The lights, the shining dresses, the dancing, it's all marvelous. And for a young girl craving attention, there's no better cure than the spotlight. Her face beamed. I suppose I understood that. Alright. You know, it's about her. I might as well. I'm asking everything, aren't I? I would try to pull on Frankie's bottle. And what's that supposed to be? She asked. It's the password to the tin spoon. Oh, precious, she said. My password to that joint is my voice. Alright. Oops. Me. She probably doesn't know anything about this. I don't think she knows anything about Redstone Stable. Yeah. I don't think she knows anything about Redstone Stable. Yeah. Luckily, this music is really good. Where am I? Oh. Okay, Tiny Paul. Nope, nothing there. How about the money bit? The money bit. Oops. Yeah, that. Nope. How do you not know anything about your husband, lady? Thinks the one is legitimate. Like, I really want to, like, they say Paul was there too, but I really want to talk to Paul. Ah! So, wait, why is this like this? What happened? Oh no, it got cut off. Small black hand on it. That hand, I explained, is a symbol of the notorious Black Hand gang. Why? That's weird. Why is this cut off? That's annoying. I explained, is a symbol of the notorious Black Hand gang. Mrs. Green's eyes went wide. Yes, but, I continued, it was a fake. The Black Hand doesn't run this far west. So who wrote it then? She asked. I told her that I thought her husband had written the letter, and that I had thought his bootlegging scheme was a bust. He also had those tickets to St. Louis. I think his plan was to fake his death and use me as cover while running back home. She sighed. I don't know about his dealings, Malone. Alright, she doesn't know about his dealings. This already. This is just gonna tell me, yeah, I told you already. Yeah. There's nothing else I can use to contradict that. Man, I don't know, man. I just don't know. Anything at the tin spoon? Nope. Nothing there. I really don't know what to do. I really don't know. I guess we're gonna have to end here because I don't know what to do. And hopefully this doesn't nah, nothing there. let's just ask about the wilting plant. Why not? Apparently the wilting flower. It's a struggle to keep any plant alive, I said. Yes, but I can't say no to yellow chrysanthemums. They are so warm, brighten the entire room. She didn't say nothing about the Chinese stuff, right? I already asked. Oh, maybe I'll ask her about this. Nah, she doesn't know anything about that. Alright, I think we're just going to have to end it here because I don't know what's going on. And it's almost midnight, and I'm just getting nowhere. And I'm sure this is frustrating for you as watching as well. So we'll just end it here. And, you know, I'll try and figure this out on my own. Or maybe I'll play this again sometime once I get a little bit more information. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed at least the first 2 hours of this when I was getting somewhere. You know, I'll see you tomorrow for what will most likely be Hollow Knight. Though I haven't confirmed that. It might be Hollow Knight. I got a couple of games, you know, in the air. I got Hollow Knight. I got Call of Duty, Cold War, Black Ops Cold War, and I've got Marvel's Avengers, Hawkeye story to finish. Excuse me. So I will do one of those three. I think I originally said I would continue Hollow Knight, but now I'm not sure. I'll do one of those three tomorrow. We'll see what I do. And yeah, I think I'll probably just finish this on my own time. I really wish I could have gotten, like, I knew what I was doing, like, that I was smarter, that I was a better detective. I'm better at writing mystery stories than I am at figuring them out. But yeah, we'll see. All right, anyway, thank you guys so much for joining. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for some game. I'll figure it out at some point. Bye-bye. Thanks so much.